All right,
Ready to go?
back.
Oh, are we back on already?
We are back on now.
Wonderful.
All right,
It appears
so
now our audio is actually working as well. Sorry for those technical difficulties.
wonderful, wonderful joys of setting up a stream for the first time during FNM. So it looks like we're starting play, right?
Are you hearing this random music?
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. Anyways, we are back. Game 3 of our first feature match, Friday Night Magic. Mario Salgado on our right with Blue White Panharmonicon. Rich Moan on our left with a rug, what we are calling Poisonless Infect.
Which is probably one of the worst names in deck history, but that's what it's called. So, Crumbling Vestige
Oh, that's wonderful.
into a Thraben Inspector. How often do you ever see that?
Oh, that just made my night.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
It can only go downhill from here.
So again, apologies. We are still figuring out the stream here, getting everything set up.
Yeah. That's why we start on the Friday Night Magic. Get the trouble out of the way, and then when we have our larger events coming up later this year, which we will talk about some of them coming up once this match is over. But hopefully in the future, streams will be a little less glitchy, and we can bring the action a little smoother.
Right, right.
It appears Rich played a Servant of the Conduit, which did not get killed immediately this time. Probably a mistake. But Mario getting his colors fixed and sending it back.
Looks like crashing in with that servant too. Why not?
Yeah. If you don't need the mana, never bad to chip in some damage.
That's right. Turn 3, here we go. I feel a reflector coming on. Yeah,
Right.
there we go.
The only downside there is that Rich will get a little more energy when you replace that, but I don't think that's particularly what Mario is concerned about in this matchup, is
Right.
it?
I don't believe so. I mean, the energy doesn't matter. It's the creatures that are on the board. Although it looks like Rich might have an answer here.
Blossoming Defense
Defended. No reflecting this time.
truly is poisonless, in fact. Blossoming Defense is a very strong card that has made the modern Infect deck much more frightening.
Absolutely.
Didn't think that was possible. Deck's very good as is, but
You know, there used to be a time, of course, this is the old man me speaking, but there used to be a time when standard cards didn't impact older formats as much. It sure does seem like that's happening a lot more with modern.
I feel like that's partially just an effect of the natural power creep of the game. Obviously, as you release new cards, you want them to be splashy and for people to get excited, so the power level will creep up. And I think it's reached a point where it really has caught up, and modern is influenced by standard fairly heavily at this point.
Definitely.
It's never anything crazy. There's very rarely a whole new deck that comes out, with a rare exception like the Eldrazi decks we experienced about
Right.
a year ago. But there's always cards like Tassiger or Blossoming Defense that are making some sort of impact. I've even heard of a few people playing vehicles in modern.
Vehicles in modern seems interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that's caught on terribly, but modern's such a wide open format. Anything can make a splash.
Absolutely. So it looks like we had a servant crash in. Reflector Mage blocked, and I'm not sure what that pump spell is. Rush of Adrenaline, I believe, is what it was.
I believe so.
Replacement Reflector Mage. He really doesn't like that servant.
Well, at this point, it might even just be he wants to get creatures on the board and use his mana, and there's no better targets to be reflected. So,
That's true. Of course, the Poisonless Infect deck doesn't look to be doing anything. 5 mana past turn is not a powerful turn for that deck.
no, it is not. But at the same time,
Mario setting up the lock over here with the Displacer. He appears to be Landlight, but he does now have the Blink Reflector Mage quote combo happening.
yes, he does. Part of the power of that crumbling vestige, as unorthodox as that is, it seems to be effective here. When you're already on 6 mana, I don't know if a mana producing creature is really what you want to be playing here, but it appears that's what Rich has put onto the board. Mario is actually very constrained on his mana at the moment. He only has 3 mana, which is probably choking him fairly heavily. Would you agree?
I agree, absolutely. Looks like
Certainly seems to be holding his own here. Another Reflector Mage. I gotta tell you, if you can only cast 3 mana spells, Reflector Mage is probably one of the strongest ones you can be casting.
absolutely.
It's allowed him to get ahead here, 13 to 18, and I would not expect the blue-white Panharmonicon deck to be the aggressor in this matchup, but that seems to be what's happening as Mario is swinging out for 8 damage by my count. Puts Rich down to 6. Rich is going to have to make some plays here just to not be killed on the next turn. Here comes that Servant again. It is nothing if not persistent.
It's really unfortunate that the only plays Rich has had the entire game are the servants.
And one pump spell, I believe?
One pump spell. Two, actually, the defense and the rush, right?
That's right. The
Yep.
defense is less of a pump spell, more simply protection, which is part of the versatility that makes it such a good card.
Right. Of course, we're displacing the reflector. Looks like another defense coming. Of course, it's not going to stop the 8 power on the board, threatening to lethal.
Can potentially stop 3 of it here, but not when Mario has onboard interaction. He needs the Displacer, blink the Servant. He's actually going to go for the Spatial Contortion and just try to get it off the board entirely.
Right.
We're just seeing if he has any responses here.
I mean, if he did have the 4th defense, it would be pretty good here. Mario doesn't have the colorless to displace the reflector in response, so that's an important piece. Another rush of adrenaline, keeping it alive for the moment.
And he has the Stasis Snare to follow it.
Yep, that's lethal.
And that's the game.
Good games.
Mario Salgado taking down that match 2-1 with plenty of time to spare. Seems we may still be having some technical difficulties. Apologize if we can't hear all the audio.
We're going to go ahead and test the audio here.
Check, mic check. Do you want to try bringing that blue slider on right mic up? Maybe that's part of it.
It was all the way maxed out here.
I don't know if we want to... Huh, that's odd. Now it seems you are not producing nearly as much audio either.
Yeah, he said that he can hear me fine.
Again, we apologize for these technical difficulties. This is our first commentating stream, so ironing out some of the details here.
We've still got about 12 minutes left in the round. I'm not sure we're going to put another game on camera, so we might just be...
I believe we're probably going to take a break here shortly. Again, sorry we missed some of that match with some stream issues. Hopefully everything's cleared up now. Just to recap, Rug, Poisonous Infect, as we're calling it,
Poisonous Infect.
ends up losing to blue-white Panharmonicon. Panharmonicon itself not making much of an impact in
No,
that game.
no, absolutely not. The only game we saw it come down was on game 1. There were no other spells to go with it, so really didn't do anything.
But I think the fact that the deck that is named around a card that can function without it is actually usually a good thing.
Yes, definitely.
You usually don't want to be reliant on one card for your combos unless you have a lot of ways to get it and be redundant. And as you saw there, Reflector Mage, Displacer, these are all just fine on their own. When you get
Sure.
Panharmonicon down, it tends to just get ridiculous.
You're just getting bonuses at that point. Yep. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll see if there's any more stream issues we need to resolve. We'll be back.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Friday Night Magic here at Owl Central. I am Robert Ellis here with Luke Criteo.
Criteau.
I apologize.
It's all right.
It's a unique last name. I like it. Anyways, we're here for Friday Night Magic, playing Standard, getting ready for round 2. And, you know what's happening shortly that's going to change Standard up?
Aether Revolt.
Aether Revolt,
Yeah.
indeed. Drops on January 20th, and if you're looking to get yours, you can pre-order here at Owl Central. Booster boxes are $90. An entire case will be $525 to be clear. The bundle boxes are $30, and the Planeswalker decks are $15. You can order those here in our store, or you can order on owlcentralgames.com. We have a form there you can fill out to inquire about products. Additionally, you can find us on facebook.com/owlcentralgames or call us at 610-929-2137. All right, so first round, despite some technical difficulties, got to see Blue-White Panharmonicon go against Rug Poisonless Infect.
That name really bugs me, and I don't know why.
It's not a good deck name.
No.
The era of good deck names have passed.
In fact, I think I just read an article, maybe it was yesterday, about how the original combo decks were all named after breakfast cereals, and
Yeah,
I feel like that's kind of the other extreme, though, too. I mean,
a little too goofy.
you
I
hear the
think-
name Tricks, and it just doesn't do anything.
No, see, I think one of the classic combo deck names, though, Cheerios, was perfect because
Yeah.
it's funny, and it explains the deck because all of the costs were 0,
Right.
forming a circle like a Cheerio.
Right, exactly. But at the same time, if someone said, "Oh, you're going to be playing against Cheerios," sure, all the cards are going to be costing 0, but what's the deck do? How do you win?
You bring a
Who
spoon.
knows?
Yes, Vincent. You sure you're good? Absolutely sure you're good?
We are live, so yes, we are good.
Mike Knowles.
No shout out to Mike Knowles. Sorry about that, folks. We need to secure our streaming area a little better, I suppose.
Definitely.
Get an on-air sign. And
Hopefully, we've got audio. We're kind of waiting to get some feedback on our audio.
not literal feedback. That's a bad thing for audio.
Not literal feedback.
Some audience feedback, or looks like everything's going smooth, but taking a little longer to get pairings up than we thought. But what are some other decks you think we might see tonight, Luke?
I know there's vehicles decks running around here very constantly. There are a couple players on the Green Black Delirium deck. I am
think
not
those are-
sure about Marvel. I don't know if anyone's playing Marvel right now.
I believe at least one person I know is playing Marvel, or at least some janky combo deck that resembles it, if nothing else.
Okay.
I believe there's a Marvel player in the field, though. It's
Okay.
a close friend of mine, Tyler Blessing, who I believe was looking to build Marvel. I'm not sure if he picked up all the pieces before tonight, but I know it was his intention. Last week he played some variant of Panharmonicon. I don't believe it was blue-white, and had a less than optimal showing, for sure. But
I know there's a regular blue-white flash deck. One of the players that's been playing it, I do see him over there. I'm not sure what else we've got here, though. So it's going to be a good mixed bag. We'll get on camera here.
Christian and Eric Henson are the feature match. Okay. I just want to make sure you guys know how to spell both of them. Christin.
okay, I believe we just got word on our feature match coming in. It's going to be Christian and Eric. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it is going to be a vehicles mirror of some sort. Maybe some slight variants, but another deck that features a mechanic from Kaladesh. And
I'm not sure what Christian's last name is, so I'm not going to put it up here.
I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I believe it's spelled Urena.
Urena. All right.
And if that is incorrect, I'll take the heat for that. I apologize.
I'll let him take the heat.
I will gladly take the heat. I've worked in kitchens before. I believe pairings will be up shortly for the general population. I think we got an early sneak peek of them here.
Right.
Vehicles is a new mechanic here in Kaladesh. What's your opinion on vehicles in general, Luke?
I think the mechanic's actually very well done. Most of the decent vehicles have a pretty low crew cost, so they're pretty well placed for aggressive decks. Even some of the bigger ones, the Sky Sovereign flagship, or some of the draft only ones, the trains.
Renegade Freighter is great card in draft. Most of my experience
absolutely.
with this set has been in the form of limited.
I think they've managed to hit the right balance between, how many creatures you're actually going to be tapping, what kind of power and toughness is available.
Yeah.
I think they're a home run too. I mean, people
Yeah, I
like
think
playing.
they're- Yeah, for sure. It's formed a very strong standard deck. It's one of the funnest new mechanics I think they've come out with because it's different. It's not something we've seen before or even anything close to it. The nearest thing is equipment, and one of the biggest complaints with equipment is that you continually have to pay the equip cost if a creature gets dealt with that it's
Right,
on.
right.
Whereas here, that avoids that, and I think one of the most feel-bad parts of equipment is paying that equip cost and having the creature dealt with.
Over and over. Yep.
Yeah, and this definitely gets around that. I think it's a very fun mechanic and clearly very impactful, and hopefully we'll get to see it shown off here tonight.
It's a very good evolution. I mean, if you consider, in the very beginning of the game, they had a couple of those enchantments, auras nowadays, fire breathing, but really your options were pump spells and enchantments. And as they've evolved into equipment now, these vehicles, I think it's great. You can crew your vehicle, and you still have your original creature if they manage to deal with the vehicle.
sure.
So I think it's a very big home run.
For sure. Like I said, most of my experience has been in draft, and Renegade Freighter is easily a first pickable common. Especially in a limited format, picking a colorless card early keeps you open,
Right.
lets you draft whatever colors open then.
Right.
And I've played Renegade Freighter in control decks. I've played it in aggro decks. It just fits anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
The vehicles offer a lot of utility, for sure.
One of the interesting additions with Kaladesh, I think, was the energy mechanic. For years, everyone's always said, well, what if they're going to add a 6-color? What are they going to do? I think the energy mechanic is a great balance. What are your thoughts on it?
I don't know if I'd call it a 6th color. I think the closest we've come to that was the actual colorless cards,
yeah.
as we saw in Battle for Zendikar.
Right.
Energy is wonderful, though. I actually was listening to a podcast with Mark Rosewater a week or so ago. He was talking about how he originally had the idea for energy looking at the original Mirrodin block is when he had the idea for it. And there was just too much going on, and they had to pull it out. And he finally found room to work it in here and was really excited for it. And I think the players were excited, too.
I think so.
I had a little apprehension with it, thought it might have been a little too much bookkeeping, but I have not found that to be the case at all. I found it to be fairly intuitive. It's a nice resource that changes the game up. Most of the time.
I think one of the interesting pieces is the fact that they've used it for both pump spells and other abilities. I mean, we've got Servant of the Conduit, use some energy for mana. We've got Bristling Hydra and Volcanic Brawler, or Voltaic Brawler, using it as pump spells. We've got Aetherworks Marvel, using it to just cast spells out of nowhere. There's a lot of viability for what you can actually do.
Of course. And another thing I really like about traditionally when you look at limited formats, again, that's where a lot of my experiences is, but it translates over into constructed as well. If you're looking for something to do late game, a lot of the time you look for mana sinks, and this is an interesting way to change that up, so you can still use your mana to play spells and have somewhere to sink for late game effects.
Right.
Such as the card Aether Squall Ancient in Limited. Hasn't made much effect in Standard, which certainly wouldn't expect it to.
That would be the big
7
flying
drops.
whale, right? The
The big
upheaval whale,
flying
yeah.
serpent that upheavals, exactly.
Right.
Now, it appears our players are getting ready. Pairings are posted. Matches will begin shortly. And again, I believe they're both on some variant of vehicles, but I'm not exactly sure what.
I believe last week that's what Christian was doing.
I know he's on red-white vehicles, and Eric has changed up a few times the standard format. I'm not sure what he's on tonight.
So we're going to go ahead and move over to the feature match. They did start time even though these guys are shuffling up.
Yeah, with a vehicles matchup, I don't think they'll be worried about going to time too much.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah. But,
So
see
we've
our
got,
players
we've
shuffling
got
up.
Eric here over on the left. And we've got Christian over on the right.
Now, see Eric here doing his little pile shuffle. What is your opinion on the recent policy change to pile shuffling, or pile counting as they're calling it, since it doesn't actually shuffle?
I feel like they've gone 90% of the way. I'm in favor of them limiting it. I just wish that it was limiting it to 0. I don't see how useful it is. I do understand that people have that superstition of declumping their deck, but I don't really like it.
And yeah, I'd agree. I used to actually be one of those people who would pile shuffle between every game, and I'm not sure what it was. Someone explained to me how it just doesn't randomize the deck. Explained to me it's just a method of counting, and something about the way it was explained to me clicked, and I can't tell you the last time I pile shuffled the deck, except... Oh, I just can't tell you the last time I pile shuffled the deck.
Yeah, there was a period a couple years ago where I would pile shuffle at least once a game or a match. Nowadays, I can't bring myself to do it. I just know that it does nothing, so there's no point in actually doing
Just a
it.
time consumption.
Yeah.
All right, and here we go. Christian leading off with a Toolcraft exemplar, confirming our suspicion he is on vehicles, and Eric mirroring it exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's what this matchup is, right? It's a fast who gets on the board, who gets moving first.
Yeah, and with Christian winning the die roll, he definitely has an advantage there. But
Yeah, in comes our favorite artifact, Smuggler's Copter.
speak for yourself. I'm a fan of the clues.
We've got Metalcraft Man swinging in for 3. Are we going to get the Mirror Copter? What do you think?
It's definitely the best play, but I don't know if it's what we have coming.
Scrounger.
Scrounger. All right, that's another card that's making these aggressive vehicle decks very strong. Helps all the cards that need to have artifacts, such as Soulcraft Exemplar. Just make sure they get there early. And, interestingly enough, Eric playing out that Concealed Courtyard confirms he is on a Mardu vehicles build, if I'm correct.
Right.
I don't think there's a way a vehicles list could not run red. Too much good removal. Too many creatures that are too powerful, such as the Veteran Motorist that we see Christian playing here.
Yeah, it looked like he bottomed both of those. So we've got a Motorist crewing the Copter, giving it +1/+1. Scrounger attempted to block, but was quickly reminded, cannot block. We've got Eric taking 7 from that attack.
Yeah, that Motorist is powerful. It's interesting with vehicles, they effectively give all of your creatures haste in a way,
Right.
which really lets these aggressive decks shine and push through damage.
Here we've got Inspector Gadget making your favorite artifact,
Indeed.
the Clue.
What can I say? I'm a sucker for value.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone should be. Everyone should be a sucker for
true.
value. All right, so we've got the 3 colors assembled here for Eric now. It looks like Christian might just be on the 2-color version.
I believe he is on a red-white version, if I'm not mistaken. And, Eric definitely on the back foot here, 10-17, and he's going to need something here. He's probably got to play defensively here.
Much likely. I mean, the Scrounger still can't, block, so
This is true.
he's probably just going to jam in with that anyway. But it's very possible that the Exemplar hangs back.
What outs does he have here that could really help him stabilize this board?
I think the biggest thing would probably be some kind of removal spell. The decks do run sometimes Harness Lightning or Galvanic Outburst, Galvanic Blast. I think one of the most important plays would probably be something along the lines of Copter and Galvanic Blast. It looks like he just
It
passes
seems
the
to
turn,
pass.
though.
I would have to hope that means he has some sort of instant speed removal spell. Probably going to try to target the Copter.
I would guess there's probably an Unlicensed Disintegration in his hand. That's one of the big draws to playing the Mardu version, is that Disintegration.
Absolutely. As I've affectionately heard it nicknamed Murder Bolt.
Murder Bolt, yep. It's interesting that he didn't attack with the Scrounger.
Seeing that it can't block, I'd agree. It's possible he's forgotten, but
Oh, that was a very quick card. I believe that was Disintegration. They're writing down life totals. Yep, here we go.
it seems he had that all queued up and ready to go as soon as he crewed up the vehicle.
Yep.
Which was probably the correct play here, although I still think he should have attacked with that Scrounger.
Absolutely. Of course, thanks to that clue, his Exemplar, Chris's Exemplar, is still +2/+1.
Yeah, so it's going to make the... I don't think Eric has any profitable blocks here.
It does not look like it. He's going to attempt it, maybe?
He's going. Okay, he can still
Check
trade
out
with
the
the
Motorist,
Motorist.
yeah.
I'm not sure if I'd classify that as profitable, but a 1-for-1 trade is probably the best he can hope for. That puts him down to 5, though.
Should put him down to 6 after that. He took 4.
6. Oh,
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yep, 10-4. course, now looking at the board, he's got Scrounger, which can't block, against 7 power in play.
Actually, he's facing even more damage than that. If Christian hits his land drop, that Needle Spires can attack next turn.
Right.
That being said, I don't think Christian particularly needs to hit that land drop. He's in a commanding board position here already.
Absolutely.
And, if he does need to find anything, such as a removal spell or that other land, he does still have that clue.
Although Eric is sitting on a grip of cards, I believe Christian only has 1 in hand.
This is true. Eric taking his time here. I think he knows he's in a rough position and trying to figure out what the best line here is. He plays out a Smuggler's Copter. That is definitely one of the best cards in this format. It's defined this format since it hit, for sure.
And he can definitely leave some colors open to see if he can draw a removal spell off that loot.
Of course. You don't usually remember that Smuggler's Copter can loot when it blocks as well because, well, it's not usually blocking.
That's absolutely correct. Of course, now this time he did leave Scrounger back, and it's probably the right play. He does need to crew that Copter.
Yes.
We'll see what happens here.
Christian untapping and draws a card for turn. I'd imagine there's some attacking very near in the future. It's possibly cracks the clue first, tries to find a removal spell.
Of course, that's going to make his Exemplar a little bit worse, so
This is true.
he might really only want to do that if he already knows he has another artifact in hand.
This is true. He's also very far ahead on board, so... Well, he goes ahead and cracks the clue,
Crack that clue, yep.
knowing he has another...
Inspector coming, yep.
Coming in with everything that can attack. In this situation, Eric very quickly blocks the Exemplar. I think he knew that attack was coming and knew the block he had to make.
Looks like he's taking 4 from that, going down to 2. I didn't see him loot either, so it looks like he might have missed his loot trigger. That's a big deal.
Indeed. He may have suffered from the same symptoms I was discussing earlier where Smuggler's Copter does not often block, so you don't
Right.
necessarily think of that trigger. When in doubt, read the cards. I've made more than my fair share of mistakes. And Depala Pilot Exemplar coming down.
Normally this would be in a great spot,
And
but
I don't think it was enough. I believe Christian won that game.
yeah, it looks like Eric just scooped that one up.
Yeah. Interesting. If you know that card's not going to be enough to pull it out, I'm not sure why he played it out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's going to be pretty obvious that it's in the deck, but giving him that extra information, kind of a waste.
It's the little things.
Yeah.
Looking at the sideboarding, I can see some Fragmentize in there for Chris. I'd imagine both players have something to that effect here, where they want to bring in cheap ways to deal with artifacts.
Looks like Chris just brought in a trio of Galvanic Blast, or Galvanic Bombardment. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Eric already shuffling up. Technically breaking a rule with that pile shuffle, but Friday Night Magic, REL, I don't think he's going to get punished. I also don't particularly think this match is going to be too worried about time.
I don't think so either. I'm not sure about this matchup. I'd imagine it's probably an uncommon matchup at this point, since the big decks are really kind of pushing vehicles out of the format.
For sure. If I'm not mistaken, and again, I very well could be, I believe the vehicle decks are still a fairly good answer to the Marvel decks, though.
They are, which is probably why they're coming back a little bit. One of the big problems, though, is that the newest kind of iteration on the Marvel decks is those Naya versions, where if you do end up attacking, they're probably going to Nahiri exile your important plays. Your Smuggler's Copters, your Depalas.
And Nahiri, a Planeswalker that, another one of those cards that we were discussing earlier that doesn't necessarily make the biggest impact in Standard, but I've seen a lot of play in Modern. Really brought the Jeskai control decks back out and gave them another way to close the game out. And I think we're seeing similar things happening in Standard now, where
Right.
people are using her, like you said, in the Naya Aetherworks decks. Great way to deal with some plays, and then go get, I believe, Emrakul is what they usually find with her to
Yep.
put a threat on the board, and then it returns to their hands so they can get the cast trigger in the subsequent turns. All right, getting ready for game 2 here. Christian is up, and Eric will be on the play. making mulligan decisions here. And should be on the game shortly.
I would imagine mulligan decisions are fairly tough in this matchup. You've got to have a good balance of being aggressive and being able to handle removal.
And part of the reason Eric might be taking a while there, it seems he had a tap land for his first turn. So putting him to a slow start. And again, Chris mirroring it exactly.
Yep.
So a lot of what these decks go for is redundancy. And I think we're seeing that in the similarity of the plays they're making.
Definitely.
Eric going Courtyard into Veteran Motorist, so he'll get his scries here. And I don't think we're going to be able to see if he keeps them on top or bottom, but
Now, one of the interesting things about Motorist is it's just a good creature by itself. Tacking on the scry, I always wonder if this kind of creature is a little bit undercosted. He's got a lot of text
Absolutely.
on him.
it's definitely pushed. And what Wizards has been doing recently, every set you look at Uncommon is going to have a cycle of gold creatures that are really going to define what those colors are about in that set. They're mostly for draft, but occasionally you'll see one like Veteran Motors break through into Standard because they really want to push them and make a statement about what those colors are doing in this format.
Right.
And with Veteran Motors, it's undercosted, high power, and just being efficient.
Right.
And Chris
course, the
follows
mirror.
up with the Veteran Motorist.
Now, it looked like Eric put one on top, one on bottom. Christian puts both on the bottom, not finding anything he likes there.
All right.
Looks like Eric plays another Courtyard. I know he just drew a Scrounger, but I'm not sure he's ready to play that quite yet.
No, it might be correct to just get the creatures off the board here. If you can get ahead, as we saw in Game 1, that can really slow your opponent down.
Right.
When the aggro decks have to play defense. And
Looks
Eric coming out with the DePaula here.
Paula.
And then swing with the Motorist. Eric more than happy to trade. I'm sorry, Christian more than happy to trade. I would have to assume that's because he has follow-up plays here to keep a presence on this board. One white mana. Are we going to see my favorite artifact? We are.
Good old Clue Maker.
Even in aggressive decks, drawing cards can be very important. Once you and your opponent both run out of gas, having a way to pull back ahead and card advantage can really make the difference.
Definitely.
And a Smuggler's Copter to follow it up. That's a strong play here.
It's going to make it so DePaula can't really attack profitably, which is pretty important in this matchup, I think.
This is
You want
true.
to keep your life total high enough that you will be able to swing back and keep control of the game.
Absolutely. An Aether Hub here. Following up with his own Thraben Inspector, getting his own clue. And now we'll see the important thing here. Who has the better art clue? Oh,
Personally,
tough
I'm going
one.
for the Feather.
I would have to go for the Feather too. The Star City token there is very unique, but I mean he's not really a clue, is he? It's not an artifact.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to give that point over to Chris.
It looks like DePaula coming into the swing.
Chris choosing not to block.
Chris choosing no block. That's interesting.
Maybe perhaps he has a removal spell, so he's expecting to be able to deal with DePaula this turn and then attack with the Smuggler's Copter. And
What do you think about not using DePaula's trigger there either? Maybe Eric's holding up removal for something? I suppose if it is, we're going to find out right now. Yep, there was a Harness Lightning.
very quick, and that's gonna. I mean, Eric has a significant lead on the board at this point, unless Chris has a follow-up here that can get him back in it.
This game might very quickly revolve around DePaula, how many extra cards Eric could get out of it. I do see at least one of the cards in his hand is that Scrounger, and I believe the other's a land. So he's not sitting on a whole lot of gas right now.
Chris coming down with another Thraben Inspector. Not particularly great in multiples, with the exception of the fact that you get multiple clues, and if the game goes long, they're great, but
This
with
is
these
not the
aggro
kind of
decks-
matchup that goes long. Yeah.
No, certainly not. Eric untapping here. He already has DePaula and the Inspector on board, and we have to expect he's going to add to that board this turn.
Gonna
He
break
is
that clue.
cracking the clue, going to get as much information as possible before he makes a decision on his play, and then very quickly play out that Scrounger.
Looks like Christian also had a Harness Lightning for that DePaula.
Indeed. And players very quickly trading back resources, creatures, and this board state looks pretty even to me. The biggest advantage to me is the fact that Chris does have those 2 clues yet, so he
Right.
gets to dig deeper in his deck when he needs to, but he is tight on lands.
Right. And without Depala in play, Eric doesn't have a lot of ways to get any card advantage back.
Indeed. It's not often you think about an aggro match and worry too much about card advantage. It's usually tempo and speed, but in these mirrors sometimes, when both decks are just extremely efficient, they'll trade resources early, and then it'll drag out a lot longer than you'd expect.
Definitely.
Chris here cracking a clue, probably looking for a land drop here. Seems he missed that land drop and is going to swing in. 1 block, of course, the Thraben Inspectors, both being 1 power, 2 toughness creatures, simply bounce off each other, and Chris with a 3rd Thraben Inspector.
He really, really likes those clues.
I'm going to have to agree with him on that, especially that feather. Beautiful.
From what I can tell, it looks like Eric is just sitting on a lot of land. And there's a cruiser.
Right. And Eric attacking in with the Scrounger this turn since it can't block, and the cruiser gets in as well. It's going to knock Christian's life total down quite a bit. It appears the totals are 9 to 19 now. Christian down on life, but not necessarily down on board. That Fleetwheel Cruiser eats up one of the creatures, though it is still a big threat.
This is one of the things we discussed as the crew costs of those vehicles. Fleetwheel is a roughly easy one. I believe it's crew 2. So Eric needs something to go along with that Inspector, or he's stuck tapping the Scrounger for that Fleetwheel Cruiser.
And that's not really where he wants to be.
Of course, Chris is stuck on lands right now, so he doesn't
He's
have
got
a whole
that-
lot of things he can do.
He's got that Needle Spires there, but he's a ways off from activating it, and the Needle Spires would be a wonderful answer to Fleetwheel Cruiser, actually. But
Absolutely.
until he can get 2 more lands in play, it's not going to be doing very much in the way of blocking. Chris taking his time and thinking here. I think he knows he's in trouble because of his lands, and playing a Veteran Motorist is solid. That's going to make Eric's attacks much worse, and it'll allow him to scry, hopefully finding more lands, or perhaps even just a removal spell to stave off the onslaught of attacks Eric has put forth this turn.
We did see a land over in Chris's hand. Looked like an Inspiring Vantage, which isn't going to help him this turn, but he again bottomed both cards, not finding things he likes. There's that Inspiring Vantage.
Right. We're heading back over to Eric here.
Now, if we just look in terms of what he can do, he could just block out the board. So it's not a very great attacking situation for Eric right now. But Eric drew another land. He's sitting on 2 lands in hand.
That's going to make it.
There's just not a lot of action on Eric's side. And Chris, once he starts finding those lands, he's going to have a really good board setup.
Absolutely. As we said, you don't think of these games going along, but when they do, the resource are important. I believe I also just saw in Chris's hand a Smuggler's Copter, which, as we said, one of the best cards in this standard format. Can help him stabilize the board as well as dig for whatever he feels he needs in this situation, whether that be more lands or more removal or even more creatures.
Looks like Chris's hand is actually Gideon Smuggler's Copter Harnessed Lightning.
Oh, wow.
That is an
Gideon could be a
incredible
very
hand for
strong
this
play
board.
here. Absolutely. And one of the weaknesses of Fleetwheel Cruiser over on Eric's side is that it does only have that, I believe, 1 toughness?
3 toughness.
It is 3 toughness.
toughness,
I must be thinking of another card. I retract my statement about a weakness. It's going to be very hard for Chris to block that profitably, with the exception of the Veteran Motorist. And even then, he's still taking 4 damage, seeing he's at 9 right now. Not sure that's the route he wants to go. Eric is crewing up the cruiser and attacking, and Christian very quickly blocking with the Veteran Motorist.
Looks like he's going to be taking 4 trample. Going down to 5.
So it's not an ideal position here, but if you can stabilize the board, it might not necessarily matter. I would expect we see the Gideon come down here.
That would be my thought. Gideon's going to be able to pump out a long supply of blockers and could even just go aggressive, since he's got all of those Inspectors to block down the road.
Absolutely, but I don't know if that's really the route he wants to take short term. I think short term he probably wants to stabilize, and here's that Gideon as we thought, and we'll see if he's going to go up or
Well, I
Stay
think
at
no matter
4.
what, you're going to make that first ally. But after that, you might actually just tick up and leave all your other guys behind to block.
You're not necessarily wrong, and depending on what Eric's follow-up plays here are in the next few turns, if he doesn't improve his board state quickly, Gideon could even just emblem and make all of Christian's creatures
Right.
very threatening attackers.
Eric actually drew this Ether Hub he's playing right now, so his other card in hand is still just a land.
It's going to make it very difficult to come back here. I shouldn't say come back. Eric is still ahead
Needs
on
to
life.
finish
He's
that
at
job.
19, but he needs to finish Chris off very quickly.
One of the
And,
tricks is that if Christian decides to just go fully offensive and tap everything to attack, all Eric needs is 1 damage to finish the game with his 4 power already on board. So that is a threat that Christian has to take full notice of.
Absolutely. I don't know how much direct damage these decks actually have, but
A top deck Fleetwheel Cruiser would be a pretty big game.
this is true.
Looks like he's getting in with a Scrounger again. A very quick block with an ally token. Of course, Scrounger can come back at any moment. There's at least a Depala in the yard.
Absolutely. Eric is more than happy to thin out Chris's board with the threat of that Gideon emblem. I don't believe he wants to be facing down a bunch of X3s. Now Chris is going to go ahead and make another ally here. And I would expect we see some amount of attacks here. I believe Chris probably wants to take advantage of the fact that Eric has flooded out here and make his inconsistency cost him.
Looks like Chris just played a Smuggler's Copter. Oh, and here you go. It looks like he's planning to get aggressive. Get those inspectors in.
Eric had a Needle Spires down there that we were not aware of. And, that Needle Spires is going to eat one of those inspectors, and I believe the other one is going to be blocked by Eric's own Thraben Inspector. I believe they're discussing the damage here. Not
Yeah.
sure exactly how this is resolving.
Chris, Chris might have not wanted to let him go to blocks first. He might have actually wanted to try to use that Harness Lightning and didn't get a chance. Here comes that Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Appears we're back on Eric's turn. And yeah, I was not aware of that Needle Spires on Eric's side of the board. That does change up the board state quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely. I did not see what he drew this turn. He already had that mountain in hand. So the card in his hand, I am not aware of what it is yet.
It appears he is animating that Needle Spire is going to try to get a little aggressive here, which is going to cost him.
There's that Harness Lightning pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I think that was the biggest threat on the board as far as Chris was concerned, and getting that out of the way is going to really open the door for him to continue to try to turn this corner here and get back in this game.
So we've got another swing with Scrounger and another ally block. So far, Chris is doing a pretty good job of holding back those last couple of life points.
Absolutely. As someone who tends to play control, the motto is the only life point that matters is the last one.
Absolutely.
So Chris
Another
cracking
clue.
that clue here.
Yep.
He is crewing up that Smuggler's Copter.
Time to get in there with the Flying Card Machine.
Trigger resolves before damage. We'll see if Eric happens to draw a removal spell. Doesn't appear so. Chris making another token with Gideon. And has a 3-drop follow-up here in his own Depala. This board has gotten very wide here. Eric gets that Scrounger back on end step. And
It's
we'll
interesting
untap.
that he played that Depala post-combat. Maybe he drew it off of the loot. But
Certainly
you
possible.
might have wanted to actually play it ahead of time. Get that extra damage in there.
I would think he drew it off the loot if he didn't, but Eric is conceding here.
Scoops it up.
Even with the Smuggler's Copter coming, it doesn't seem like he just didn't have enough resources to fight Chris's board. And, as we said, that was a quick one.
Wow, definitely. Plenty of time left in the match.
Yeah. And, as our player's sideboard,
No, actually, that was
Or
the match.
D
Chris
sideboard,
Chris
I'm
won
sorry.
both. Yeah.
yeah. Very quick, very efficient. And what was not a factor there that I thought might have been is the fact that Chris's deck being only 2 colors can be more consistent than Eric's.
Right.
But I don't think we really saw that play out. Both
No.
players hit their mana very efficiently.
I would say that this game was definitely dominated. Well, this match entirely was definitely dominated by Christian's deck. Just going a little bit longer, getting those clues down on the board, getting the Gideon to put out a steady stream of chump blockers.
Yeah, Gideon is one of the more stabilizing cards in this format. Some cards like Smuggler's Copter that are highly impactful, you can play and then still just be killed before you have the chance to really take advantage. Gideon is a must-answer threat that protects himself and you in the process.
Absolutely.
And just an all-around good card.
I think it's interesting. Amonkhet is coming, the set after Aether Revolt.
Yeah.
Originally, Gideon was scheduled to rotate out. And there are some people that are very unhappy that Wizards decided to change their policy. How do you feel about that one?
I have mixed feelings. I had mixed feelings when they made the original announcement with Khans of Tarkir. I don't think they really know what their goal is with it. That's been fairly unclear. I heard some people say it's going to make it more expensive. Some people say it will drive the price of Standard down.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I heard recently Standard is actually at its most affordable potentially ever. Definitely within the past 4 years at this current point.
Absolutely.
And that's great for the game. It's great to be able to get players into that affordable price point. And I think allowing people to... It is an expensive game, and allowing people to continue to play the decks that they spend so much time and money and put so much of their heart into for a longer period of time can't be a bad thing.
Right.
The concern is that with the format going longer, it will grow stale, or that the professionals on the Pro Tour may crack the format, and a solved format is not what's entertaining.
Right.
That's what we saw back in the days of Stoneblade.
Right.
As skill-intensive as that mirror match was, when that's all you see or all you play when you go to an event.
It's pretty boring.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've obviously been playing a long time. I've certainly been through my share of pretty miserable formats. We had Tolarian Academy decks, turn 2 combo decks winning. Of course, the Mirrodin era was really miserable.
You said you've been through terrible formats when you discuss these. I'm sorry, you're mispronouncing incredible.
As much of a fan of combination decks as I am, one of my favorite decks is Legacy Storm. I've been playing it for years. I also play Dredge. A lot of people in this shop here very unhappy about that fact. It's one thing to be playing that in a format that's just the best cards of every era, right? The 20 years worth of cards.
Absolutely.
It's another to be putting that into a format of 2 years worth of cards. There's not a whole lot of answers to something like that.
Absolutely. I joke about enjoying these decks and wishing I could play in some of these formats, but as I said, no matter how fun a deck is or skill-intensive a deck is, when it's all that's seen and it's just dominating and oppressive, it's not what you want to play in a format.
Right. Well, it looks like we've got about 20 minutes left until the end of this round. I am not sure we're going to get another match on camera. So we might just take a quick break here. I say quick.
Absolutely.
It might end up being about 15 minutes. Maybe we'll walk around the room and see what else is playing.
Yeah, see if we can get a view for what might be some interesting matches for the next few rounds.
Definitely. So
there are 4 rounds here at Friday Night Magic, Owl Central Games. We've completed the second round here. We've already seen really 4 unique decks in this feature match. I suppose calling those last 2 decks unique from each other might be a stretch.
3.5. Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah.
I like that. But
All right.
as we've said before, standard format, fairly diverse, even though there's perhaps not clear-cut, but fairly consensus best decks.
Yeah.
You can still play quite a lot of what you want, and we expect that to get shaken up quite a bit with Aether Revolt.
Very much so.
Some of the spoiler cards have looked pretty strong. And if you want your first chance to play with those spoiled cards, some of the new fun coming up, the Aether Revolt pre-release is going to be Saturday, January 14th and Sunday, January 15th at 12 p.m. here at Owl Central Games. That is $25 to enter per event. You can pre-register right now by coming down to the store. We do have limited spaces. We do tend to fill up, so come in, pre-register early. Those come with 6-packs. Well, I suppose it's not 6-packs of Aether Revolt. It's some Aether Revolt, some Kaladesh.
Pre-releases are normally nowadays. They are actually 6-packs, so...
Actually, really?
Yeah, I believe so.
I could be mistaking that, but we'll definitely get to play with some amount of Aether Revolt cards, including your premium rare card, or Mythic Rare that you'll get with that pre-release pack, and should be a fun time. Pre-releases are always one of my favorite times of the year for Magic.
Yeah, I might actually show up to this one. I haven't played in a pre-release in a couple sets. I am definitely thinking about it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the Kaladesh limited format has been very fun, and I expect Aether Revolt just to add to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So again, if you want more information on those pre-releases, you can go to owlcentralgames.com, where we'll have information on those pre-releases, as well as where you could order all your favorite cards for this standard format, in addition to plenty of other fun gaming products. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on facebook.com/owlcentralgames. With that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back for round 3 shortly.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right.
We
Well,
are back for round 3 of Friday Night Magic here at Owl Central Games. Should be an interesting one, if nothing else, coming up. We have Mike Knowles versus Josh Schaefer coming at you. Josh, local level 1 judge, good friend of the shop, good guy, personal friend of mine as well. Mike Knowles, he's not been playing nearly as long as Josh, but a good player in his own right.
right.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I know roughly what Josh is like. I don't know the exact list, but this should be fun.
Yeah. I know he was just talking to us over there about his spicy Mardu brew. That is not vehicles, so we'll see what happens.
Absolutely not vehicles. I'm excited to get to see it in action. I've wanted to
Yeah.
for a while and haven't had the chance. Players get ready here and shuffle up.
We could cut over to show you the hot pile shuffling action, but I guess no point in doing that quite yet.
How much do you know about Josh's Mardu list?
I don't actually know too much. I know that it's very Planeswalker focused, but I am not sure.
I had my mic muted.
Well,
First day.
that happens.
We'll get there.
Rob was asking me what I know about Josh's deck. I don't actually know too much about his deck. It is that Mardu brew. It's pretty Planeswalker focused, but I don't know too much
Yeah.
else.
The 3 cards I recall him mentioning that are in there are Kalitas,
Okay.
a powerhouse. Demon of Dark Schemes.
That's a spicy one.
Bit of a non-bow with Kalitas, but spicy in its own right.
Sure.
And Emrakul, as you were saying, potentially an overpowered card, as we were discussing earlier. I'm not sure if
Right.
it was on stream or not, but any deck that's putting those 3 cards together has to be fun.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Not sure what Mike is on at all. He is back in town from college, so I've not seen him much lately. Nice to have him back. And, let's see, they presented decks and they're getting ready to go here. I believe they're going to roll off, see who's getting to go first. May have already done that, may have missed it, but in any circumstance. Josh making sure his deck is shuffled very thorough, and here we are rolling dice.
These guys are both 2-0 right now. So this is the winning match so far.
Okay.
I believe there is at least one more sitting over there. Looks like 2 more potentially. It looks like a couple top matches up
I
there.
believe our winner from our last feature match round is over there, Chris.
Yep. So this is actually table 3.
Yes, this is the 3rd table, so there is at least, if these are both 2-0, then of course the ones 2 tables above them have to be.
Right.
Appears they're getting ready to draw their opening hands and make some mulligan decisions, and we
Really
will get
looking forward to
underway.
whatever Josh has going on here. He's
He's
definitely hyped up the demon. So
Yeah, I've known Josh for a while, and he's. I would not hesitate to say he is one of the top 2, if not the best player in this room tonight.
okay,
Excluding yourself, obviously.
I would say the same about you. Pretty good player. There's definitely no shortage of pretty good players here. I think.
Absolutely. And not to plug the store too much, but one of my favorite parts about coming to the shop is just how friendly everyone is. Whether it's one of the players who's going to go 4-0 every other week at Magic, or one of the guys that's going to go 0-4, everyone's nice and friendly.
Definitely.
We are underway here, it appears. Josh leading off with that inspiring advantage. Mike countering with an Evolving Wilds, and we'll see when the plays start. Josh brings in the Aether Hub. Pretty much a 4 of any deck that's not monocolored in this format, right?
I would think so. Yeah. There are some decks that actively don't want it, but it's just so good to sometimes have that multicolor land.
And, Josh with that beautiful energy counter.
I think we have different definitions of beautiful.
Beautiful might not be the
Personally, I prefer the foil electric Pokemon energy counter.
right.
But
Keeping it classic. I can
yeah.
appreciate that. And, Mike, Evolving Wilds, technically correct on the end step. Despite there not being anything you can do instant speed with lands in this format, still technically correct. And as we all know, technically correct is the best kind of correct.
Best kind of correct.
Getting a basic forest and getting ready to go for his turn. Mike is going to go with a Attune the Aether before playing his land. So, wants to get fixing, I'd assume. Taking his time looking at his hand, make sure he's going to get the right land. Again, technically correct, best kind. And another basic forest. Interesting choice
Forests. So far, we've seen out of the deck Forest, Evolving Wilds, Attune. That's not a whole lot of information.
there. And as we said, we're both, Mike has been out of the area, we're a little in the dark, and a Vessel of Nascency being the follow-up play here.
A couple weeks ago, he was playing a green-white Delirium deck. He might still be on
what
that.
he's on. Mike's been known to play something fairly consistently, and Josh very quickly dropping that Liliana, the last hope.
Liliana on an empty board is pretty commanding.
Yeah, definitely. Mike's got to find a way to answer her very quickly, or he's going to be facing down a lot of zombies.
Looks like he used that energy to cast her.
I would expect so. It doesn't seem to have another swamp there. So, Josh down in energy, but from what he's explained of his deck, I don't think he has any shortage of ways to get that energy back up if he needs it. Mike taking his time here, it appears.
One of the
Perhaps
interesting
thinking
things about this format is how it can be so diverse. Like we said, we went through those first couple matches. We saw 3.5 different decks. Looks like we're seeing 2 more.
Absolutely, and it's certainly possible that Mike is coming with an electrostatic pummeler deck, but it's not what I'd expect out of him.
It's definitely not showing the Vessel of Nascency.
Yeah. He may be thinking about cracking this, maybe why he's holding off on this land drop. And he goes ahead and casts, or does not cast, I apologize, plays an Aether Hub. And then casts a Servant of the Conduit.
It's definitely ramping that energy up.
That up with another Vessel. And that's interesting. I'm not sure what Mike's endgame is going to be here, but he's certainly going to reach it very quickly at this rate. The question is he going to live long enough, and will it be enough to fight back from the Planeswalkers that Josh has played? Now, killing that Servant is going to slow Mike down for sure. Josh takes Liliana up and passes it back.
So it's definitely something that Mike's going to have to answer. I mean, Liliana is a couple turns away from just going ultimate and, pumping out a lot of zombies. Yeah, and it seems like Mike is just spinning his wheels right now.
Yeah, a lot of lands there.
Island.
Still not giving us a lot of information here. I'm very curious to see what Mike's endgame is here. This seems like my sort of deck. Spin your wheels.
Do nothing?
And do nothing, and then eventually just do something weird and slightly absurd, and tends to be how I like to play. But another Servant of the Conduit here. So
all right. So far we've just seen green cards plus an island. Meanwhile, on the other side, we've got 4 lands and a Liliana. If I'm looking at this position, I actually like Josh's position a whole lot more.
absolutely, Planeswalkers are. Even mediocre Planeswalkers can be very commanding simply due to their presence on a board.
Definitely.
And Liliana is far from mediocre.
Transgress. Maybe we actually get to see what's happening now. Exile to Marvel immediately.
I believe Mike effectively made that decision for him, and I don't think it was an incorrect one. We did see a Whirler Maker in his hand. It appears he's on a Teamer Marvel deck.
Yeah,
of
it looks
some
like
sort.
Teamer Energy.
Another interesting deck, and I would think would generally have a pretty solid matchup against the long game control decks, with just being able to go over top of them and really stretch their answers. But I think Mike might just be spinning his wheels too much here.
Yeah, he really needed that Marvel to hit last turn. He might have been missing the extra land. I believe his hand was Lightning, and Wheeler Virtuoso. So he may just not have been able to do anything last turn.
Here comes that Whirler Virtuoso.
There's the Virtuoso right there.
The unfortunate part here is that even if he makes those... Well, I was say even if he made Thopters, Liliana would be able to just eat them up, although it appears Josh is going to cast that Anguish on making an end step and get rid of the Whirler Virtuoso. Mike thinking about making some Thopters here, it would appear.
So this was in response to the energy trigger, it looks like. So Mike has not gotten the 3 energy from the Virtuoso yet.
That's probably the smart move that way.
He is going to make the Copter, it looks like,
Yep,
and then go back up to 5 energy.
And that should be enough to slow that Liliana down, keep her from getting to ultimate. at least quite so fast.
Of course,
But I'd expect more answers from Josh and make it hard for Mike to keep that Liliana down for long.
Of course, so far, all we've seen out of Josh's deck is removal spells and Liliana, so I'm not even sure that keeps it down. Looks like she's not worried about the Thopter yet. That's interesting.
Mike sacrificing that vessel, and again, an Attune with Aether and 3 lands.
3 lands and a Attune. It's just not hitting anything off of that.
Not at all, but he has to be happy he's at least not drawing all of those lands.
Oh, definitely.
Deciding if he wants to get the fixing here, or just get the land that will come in untapped. I would imagine at this point with Energy, an Aether Hub, and a basic island, he's probably... I would have gone for the Forest in the situation, as I was saying, but
Definitely.
he goes for the Botanical Sanctum, and then draws for a turn. Now we see the green... the red coming in, and we'll see what sort of plays he has. That Liliana is still a very big threat that he needs to deal with very quickly. Only using the Thopter.
I believe the Liliana minused on the Servant,
That's correct.
so
So attacking with
he had no other choice there.
the Servant would have been fairly pointless.
It looks like this time there was no immediate removal spell for the Virtuoso, so he let him get the energy right away.
That Whirl of Virtuoso could certainly generate a lot of threats that are going to make that Liliana feel the pressure.
Liliana ticking up onto Virtuoso. So it still has a little bit of power. It's now a 1/3, I believe. Is it a base 2/3? I believe it's a base 2/3 actually. So it might be a 0 power right now.
In either case, not a major threat. And, that Liliana getting knocked down to 4 now. Josh just not having a lot of action besides that Liliana.
Seems like he's just drawing land after land.
That's what I'd have to imagine.
Up to 8 right now.
And the Goblin Dark Dwellers.
All right.
A card a lot of people were excited for when it got spoiled for Standard, and hasn't seen a whole lot of play. Here it's going to cast a Galvanic Bombardment, getting rid of that Servant of the Conduit.
So it looks like he might be able to lock down the board just a little bit more.
Absolutely. I'd imagine he'd plus on the Thopter here just to get it out of the way. Yep, that's what he does.
Of course, Mike can make 2 Thopters to keep pushing the Liliana down if he wants to. But he might be saving that energy.
Absolutely. If he managed to draw another Aetherworks Marvel, or perhaps another energy sink of some sort.
I guess we can't forget that there is a Harness Lightning over in his hand. Yep, there we go. Killing a Dark Dweller.
It's going to be very significant. Absolutely.
And there's Mike making 2 Thopter tokens. So he's just got to keep up that pressure. Of course, Liliana's now out of ultimate range. I'm not sure if I would keep going after Liliana.
The only reason I can think to really go after Liliana is that it's going to chip away at the Thopters, but I'm not sure. With Josh really not drawing much of their action, Mike may want to just get that Liliana clean off the board and get that Liliana off the board and just have open season to go after Josh without having to worry about the threat of Liliana should Josh draw answers to any of Mike's threats.
Looks like the full swing at Liliana, putting her down to 1. Josh playing his 9th land. So he's just really hasn't drawn much gas, it looks like.
I did see him counting those up, though, so it's possible there's an Emrakul on the horizon.
There could be an Emrakul in our path. We do have at least 2 card types. We've got Instant and Dark Dweller that we can see from our view here. Get rid of another Thopter.
I would imagine, based off how Mike's played, that we're going to see some amount of attack at Liliana this turn, get her off of the board.
Mike going back up another 3 energy and life. One of the interesting things about these Temur energy decks is that they don't actually require that top end of Emrakul. Like we've witnessed here, they're just putting out some mediocre beats, doing a little bit of work, clearing up the board, making Thopter tokens. We know Mike has at least a Harnessed Energy in hand.
he did just go ahead and get that Liliana off the board.
Yep.
I believe, did he attack everything with Liliana, or did he get one attack in at... Oh!
Doesn't matter. Mama's home.
It appears Josh might have actually wanted that Liliana in the graveyard in order to get that Emrakul out.
Very well could be,
Not
because
sure
it looks
if
like
Mike
he
thought about that.
did tap all 9 lands for it.
Absolutely. And Mike debating on what to do here with Emrakul coming down.
Casting a
He
Harness
casts a
Lightning
Harness
for
Lightning
energy.
on his own. See, I'm not sure if this is the turn controlled by Josh, or... No, that was on Josh's end step.
Yep.
So he cast the Harness Lightning and didn't pay any energy, is what happened there, I believe.
Counting out our Delirium right now. Plenty of the way there.
I would be very surprised if he didn't have Delirium.
So Mike's hand is Mountain Ishkana, 9 energy, and his turn is currently being controlled by Mike. Virtuoso gonna slam right into Emrakul, as expected. Gonna go ahead and waste an energy there with our Ether Hub. It's about all the damage we can do, I think. Yeah, tap those lands, sir. And now on to Mike's controlled turn.
Self-controlled.
Self-controlled
to be
turn. Yep.
Clear, where I would expect that Ishkana comes down. Oh no, he has a Whirler Virtuoso.
Virtuoso number 3.
And then does he have enough mana available to cast that Ishkana as well?
Doesn't look like it. He did have a land in hand.
Did he play it already is the question. No,
There
he
we
did not.
go.
There it goes, and there comes Ishkana.
All right, Ishkana is going to make some Spiderlings. Got to search through the stack of tokens for those.
And I'm going to have to
Gonna,
knock Mike down if he points here for mismatched spider tokens.
That's right.
What spider token you have is not nearly as relevant as the fact that they match.
Right.
Josh untapping now with Big Mama 1313. But
Josh is going to do a little math here, it looks like.
Does Emrakul have trample?
She does indeed.
She
If
does.
she's got a keyword you don't know about, she probably has it.
As I said, I've not played a lot of Standard this season, so I'm not terribly familiar with Emrakul. Doesn't show up all that much in Limited. Mythic rares tend to be hard to come by.
Oh, absolutely.
But Josh doing the math here.
Can he safely attack? Looks like there's 3, 6, 9 power on board. Oh, we've got to live fast? Is that what that is? Gain 2, lose 2 life, draw 2 cards, gain 2 energy?
Something to that effect, yes.
Yeah, there we go. Draw 2 cards.
I'm sure Josh is hoping to find some answers to some of these blockers.
Hopefully just not land.
Absolutely. He's had more than a surplus of that, and there's at least one land there with a Shambling Vent coming down for his land for turn.
So if we do some quick math here, we've got... Mike's got 9 power on the table, plus he can also make another 3 Thopters. That would be... excuse me, 12 damage plus the Ishkana, who it looks like is getting Ruinous Pathed.
I would expect Josh has some sort of follow-up to the Ruinous Path, even as he left up 3 additional mana, which he could have used to awaken that Ruinous Path and put another threat onto the board. Whether or not the awakened land would be terribly significant in the board, we already have a 13/13, lots of keywords. I'm not sure.
Mike might be attempting to block with the Virtuoso, which doesn't have flying.
No, it's not a flying itself. It makes a lot of flying creatures, but...
Oh, okay, so he's only blocking with a Thopter, taking 12.
He was at 26 before that hit, so he has a little wiggle room there.
Absolutely. And that
he
might just
may-
be so we can survive an extra attack.
He may actually be trying to just create a lot of Thopters here and try to close the game out before that Emrakul's terribly... I don't want to say terribly relevant, but before it's actually a lethal threat.
So he made a Thopter and left himself with enough energy in case he does draw Marvel. We'll have to see what he's planning on doing here. The good news is he can swing twice with what he's got on board and do almost enough for lethal.
Well, at the same time, Josh can attack twice with what he has on board and be more than lethal.
Right, but Mike does get his two attacks before Josh gets his.
This is true.
So it looks like we're coming in for 5, maybe 6.
Thinking about that Thopter.
Yeah,
He
thinking
might
about
wanna
that
hold
last
it.
one.
He's thinking he wants to hold it back to block Emrakul, but with Big Mama having trample, I'm not sure it's going to be that effective of a blocker. He holds it back, though. Chandra coming down.
Makes her first announcing decision of the day. Plussing. Take 2, he says. So now Mike actually is representing lethal on the table. So this next turn of Josh is actually going to be pretty big.
Absolutely. Now, if Josh would just attack the Emrakul into Chandra, getting her off the board would take away lethal. No, because he
No.
can still create those Thopters.
He could create more Thopters, yeah. So this is a very big turning point for him. Even if he leaves Emrakul back to block, there are 4 attackers plus another 2 potential Thopters and 2 from Chandra. That's 8. He is at 7.
It's going to be a tough one for Josh to get out of, although that Shambling Vent being able to attack with lifelink will give him a little bit of breathing room. Possibly just enough, actually.
It does depend on what the plan here is. If Emrakul kills Chandra and Shambling Vent attacks the face, he'll be put back up to 9, getting rid of Chandra, leaving 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 power on the board. So leaving it up to a top deck.
It's a risky play for sure, but it might be the play Josh has been forced into here. We've only seen Josh cast maybe 5 spells this game, and he is definitely still hanging on against a deck that's done. Mike's deck started off slow, but has done quite a lot since then.
Right, and it does look like that's what happened. Shambling Vent went to the face. Emrakul took out Chandra.
And then
Mike's going to go ahead and attack for 6.
I'm curious why he didn't go ahead and spend the energy to get some more attackers there, putting Josh down to 1, making any remaining attacker lethal.
Yeah, one of the big problems here is that now Mike is at 12, so he needs to create 2 chumpers to survive the turn and hope that Josh has nothing else. He did put down a chumper with Servant, which can block the Shambling Vent. So he could technically be safe this turn as long as Josh has absolutely nothing.
Which, considering how many lands he's drawn already, I'd expect at this point he has to have some sort of action.
It looks like he's got a Galvanic Bombardment, getting rid of that Servant that can chump block. That might actually be enough to make lethal here.
As long as Mike doesn't have anything in his hand, which I'm not sure he has any cards in his hand at the moment. And if that's the case, this may just be lethal. Well, he gets to make 2 blockers, but that's still not going to be enough to...
Right, even with 2 chumpers, he's going to be taking 11 from Emrakul if he chumps Emrakul, or he'd be taking 12 and blocking the Shambling Vent. Either way, he's at 12. That's actually lethal for him.
I think he's now stepping through the potential blocks, and...
I don't believe our life totals are wrong here.
Yes, apparently...
It does say Mike takes 12, so maybe we got the life totals here in the booth wrong. I can't imagine how.
I'm not sure what we missed.
Looks
and,
like it's scooped up right here.
I'm not sure it matters because Mike seems to be scooping him up. I think Mike is scooping him up. I'm not sure.
It says Mike wins game 1. We've got Mike wins game 1 because he does get
All
to
right.
attack and swing back
He gets
with
to
Josh
attack
at
back.
3.
It would appear one of us, some along the lines, we missed some sort of life swing.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we missed it, but it does look like that way.
All right, either way, it appears Mike wins game 1. Very close for sure. Yeah, Josh just didn't draw a lot of action that game.
He didn't. I mean, at the end of the game there, he had 10 lands in play. You do have an Emrakul and a Liliana, but that only takes you so far. You can't win with 2 cards.
Doesn't matter how powerful those 2 cards are. I
Yeah.
completely agree. And then Mike took a while to get going, but once he got going, the power of Whirler Virtuoso, I think, really shined in that game. Being able
Definitely.
to continually put some sort of presence on the board.
Definitely.
Similar to what I'd said earlier, the energy mechanic giving you another way to generate late game resources, even if you are using your mana to continue to play spells. And
Right, saving that
interact.
energy as long as he did made plenty of those flying attackers and blockers to get him through the rest of the game. Going long for this deck is definitely not a problem.
Absolutely. Now, what do we expect to see out of the sideboard for these two decks?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if Mike has picked up on what he's playing. He's really only seen a couple cards. He's seen Transgresses, some red removal spells, a Liliana, and an Emrakul.
And Josh, again, definitely not a deck that it's not something I think you'd see on the Pro Tour. It's a bit of a homebrew and
Right.
an interesting one and a powerful one for sure.
Right. I would imagine Mike has some number of counter spells, maybe negates in the board. I would imagine he'd bring those in even if all he saw was non-creature spells. So I would imagine if he had
Absolutely.
something like that, he'd be bringing those in. I'm not sure what Josh is up to. I mean, I don't even know what's in his main deck, so predicting the sideboard is
hard
going to be
to
kind
know.
of strange.
In a control match against the combo, I'd expect more interaction, perhaps some more ways to deal with those Whirler Virtuosos and those little creatures. Perhaps some hand attack to try to go after that Marvel. But again, not knowing exactly what he has main deck, it's very hard to predict what he'd have in his sideboard.
Right. One of the interesting cards that would have been great that game would have been Demon of Dark Schemes. He would have cleared the board and
Absolutely.
generated a ton of energy.
Absolutely.
I was really hoping to kind of see that card come out.
Yeah, well, we still have at least one more game, potentially two more games to see that demon come down. And I got to agree, I'd really like to see him come out. I've had him a few times in Limited, and he's very strong, and I'd like to see what he can do in Constructed. So, players are finishing up sideboarding, and again, this is the second player we've seen violate the one pile shuffle per match rule.
Yeah.
May have to talk to our local judges about cracking down on that a touch. But
Yet another reason I hate the rule. They should have just said no pile shuffling, or excuse me, no pile counting. It is not a shuffle. Definitely one of my personal pet peeves.
the more I think about it, I have to agree with you. I think it might be best to just get rid of it. And it seems he may have stopped halfway through. It's actually possible our local judge did crack down on him for that. And yeah, I'm still wondering if Mike has any bigger top end in his deck that he just didn't happen to draw. We did see the Marvel, and I can't imagine activating Marvel in an attempt to hit Whirler Virtuoso is his game plan.
One of the interesting things about these Teamer Energy decks is that they do just tend to grind out value. I'm not sure about Mike's specific list, but I have seen plenty of Teamer Energy decks going around that do just do that grinding thing where they play the Whirler Virtuosos, the Ishkanaz, and they just tend to go wide, make a lot of creatures, use their energy to just make more things.
Really?
Yeah, there's not been a lot of top end from what I've seen. Now again, Mike,
right.
could be doing something different.
Absolutely. I know early on in the format there was discussion of using Marvel to attempt to hit turn 3 Emrakuls or things of the such. I know you yourself tend to try to find the most broken deck in the format and play it, and it was one of your brews early on.
Yep. The first deck I played after Kaladesh came out was actually Green Red Marvel, with the very, very not too good Red Titan in the set. I did have a game where I got to blow somebody up from 20 to 0 using Combustible Gear Hulk, but
Oh, that's fantastic.
not a great card. But week one, you don't know what's really going to be happening, so you gotta try the fun stuff.
I'd absolutely agree. It is a game after all.
Absolutely. Of course, at this point, the decks have become more refined. We've definitely got different variations. We've got the Red Green Marvel, Bant, Naya Marvel, the Teamer Marvel decks. Obviously, we're
The
looking
vehicles deck's obviously still being a presence.
Yep, definitely. And as Marvel gets better, those vehicles decks do come in to kind of go under Marvel. Who cares if you're
Essentially
playing an
be the,
Emrakul? We've got 10 power on
Emrakul
the
doesn't
board.
do a lot once you're at 1.
Right. So it is definitely a natural predator.
Emrakul a very powerful card, but as we saw in that game, not always game winning.
No, definitely not.
Players presenting and cutting and shuffling up here. And, we'll get ready for game 2. Josh should be on the play here, and if you had to classify one deck in this matchup as the control deck and one deck as the beatdown deck, how would you
Boy, that's a tough question. They're both very mid-rangey. Oh, look at this note here. He's good, is what he says. He's good. I
Mike,
believe I would pick Josh as the control deck.
I would agree.
From what I've heard, he's very Planeswalker focused, so he really wants that longer game of, putting down 2 or 3 Planeswalkers, landing in Emrakul, really just taking over the board.
Absolutely. Both of these decks trying to just get the most valuable possible out of their particular synergies and going about it in very different interactions.
Right.
The Marvel deck obviously wanting to generate energy and get value from Warlord Virtuoso, while Josh is trying to get value from Planeswalkers, effectively casting free spells per turn.
Right.
Both players starting off spinning the wheels effectively. Mike with an Attune to the Aether, and Josh just playing lands and passing. Good old Drago magic.
All right, let's look at what our turn 2 brings here. More attuning to the Ether.
He is very attuned to this Ether.
Of course, that is the point, right? When you're playing a deck that relies on energy, just get all of that. Triple
Attune
attune.
the
All
Aether.
right. Of course, he's only going to end up at 5 energy from that. But still plenty for what you need to do.
This is so the first few cards we've seen. I'd have to imagine this was a low land count hand with a lot of Attune to the Ethers, and he's trying to filter through, get the lands he needs to play the spells in hand.
Given that the first land he played was the Ether Hub, using the energy to play the Attune, I would probably agree he probably did not have anything special. Of course, now he's got all 3 colors online with our basic forest in play and island and mountain in hand. Let's look at what Josh's turn 3 is.
Going to be a Transgress the Mind. Potentially a very potent card against this deck.
So we've got 2 different puzzle knots and 2 tireless trackers. One of them is going to be exiled.
So with that Servant of the Conduit there.
This is a hand that could help him get there if he definitely has some good turn options this turn. He could go for that tireless tracker and hope to play the land next turn. He could go for the servant, hoping to do tracker plus one of those 2-drop puzzle knots the next turn.
Absolutely, and we'll see what he does. And that being an island, it appears he's going to go for the puzzle knot first.
Looking for that scry.
Get a little more information before he decides if he wants to play out potentially the second puzzle knot this turn, although I would much more expect to see the Servant of the Conduit come down.
Well, this is only turn 3, so he doesn't have that 4th land yet. Unfortunately, Attune doesn't put him onto the battlefield.
That being said, I'm surprised to see the puzzle knot. I'm not sure why I thought it was his turn 4.
I definitely would have played the servant if it were up to me. Here is Chandra. An immediate answer to that servant when she does come down. Looks like he's going to tick her up and get a land, do 2 damage right away.
Right. This is what we were talking about. The Planeswalkers Josh deck is full of. Really just generating value by effectively getting to play free spells every turn. Even if that spell is just a shock. Having to not pay mana to get effects is extremely powerful.
Looks like he's going to play that tracker into a clue off of the mountain.
That's a
Pokemon card as a clue. Not a fan of this one.
I'm
Although
going to have to be somewhat of a fan for it simply because that appears to be an owl.
it does appear to be an
So
owl. I was just going to say
He does get
that.
some bonus points there. Although it is Josh's token, so I suppose Josh gets the points.
That's right. Let's see what's going to happen. Now, I do believe there were some galvanic bombardments in Josh's hand, so he might not even need to take down Chandra. And there we
That is
go.
exactly what happens. Gets
Kill
that
the
tracker
tracker.
off the board. The nice thing about tracker is that even once it's dealt with, he's gotten the clue there, so there's some value. It's not a complete loss of resources.
So we're going to tick up again, reveal the top card, which we can't see yet. It's a little bit off our camera.
But I believe Mike marked he's taking 2 damage, so. Sorry, I may have said Mark there. Meant Mike. And then we have a Live Fast coming down for Josh.
Live fast.
Ironic name for the control deck. As go back over to Mike.
So we've got Chandra on 6, 1 turn away from ultimating. Looks like we've overlaid a clue on top of our owl clue.
Interesting choice there. I'm fine with either option, but you need to commit. Now, for my own reference and for our listeners at home, what does Chandra's ultimate do?
Chandra's mana is 7 loyalty. When you use the ultimate ability, you get an emblem that is whenever you cast a spell, you can do 5 damage to target creature or player. So having her ultimate means that even just your basic anything is going to do a significant amount of damage, end the game very quickly.
Absolutely.
Looks like we've played a Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. Might going up to 19.
That'll buy him a little wiggle room if that Chandra should ultimate, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
Yeah, one of the problems with Chandra is once she ultimates, if you don't have direct damage, how are you going to keep her down? No creatures on the board. There's not a whole lot Mike can do in this spot.
Chandra's ultimate ability is a -7, correct?
Correct, -7.
So Mike needs to have a way.
I don't think there are going to be any haste creatures, although, I have been surprised before. And direct damage in this format is very sparse that can target players.
Absolutely.
And I would be very surprised to see any in Mike's deck. So I would
That's
expect this Chandra is going to ultimate next turn.
That's what I expect as well. And a Kalitas coming down to back it up.
Kalitas.
So a haste creature is not going to be good enough now either.
Looks like
Mike's going to sacrifice a puzzle, not try to dig for an answer here. And he keeps one on top, so he's found something that he likes. Or at least likes enough that he doesn't want to risk drawing another random card from his deck. This is interesting, because I'm not sure what he could have.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what card would be there.
He's going to sacrifice the Clue, which is, again, interesting considering he kept a card on top.
Maybe if the
With that
top card
Scry
was
on end
Marvel, and there's a land, maybe he could be hoping for something like an Emrakul. Maybe that there is a top end in his deck.
I would expect that if the top card was a Marvel, he would have just played it instead of sacrificing the Clue.
That's pretty true. Harness Lightning getting rid of Kalitas.
And that's great, but that Chandra is still going to ultimate unless he has...
Does not answer that emblem.
He is not going to do it.
No. So Josh is going to be able to go ultimate here. We'll see if he wants to go straight forward or if he'll get a little bit greedy. Knowing Josh, he'll just make the ultimate right away.
Yeah, I believe that would be the technically correct play, which, as we've established, is the best kind of correct. Mike, taking a look at what that ultimate does, it's possible he doesn't know how much potential trouble he could be in here. And Josh is taking his time here to make a decision, and
Here we go.
once he makes it, goes for it very quickly, gets that emblem.
Absolutely. 5 damage every turn is pretty hard. Or at least every spell. Could be multiple spells.
Absolutely.
That's hard to turn down.
Appears the emblem is represented by this wonderful owl Pokemon card here. Again, part of me prefers the actual emblem. Part of me has to respect the bird.
We wouldn't be here if it weren't for the bird. It is the word.
It is the word, after all.
Go ahead and crack that vessel. Not a whole lot of gas here for him. Definitely nothing that answers an emblem as fast.
There's not really anything that can answer the emblem. His only option here would be to
Try to race it.
try to race it,
Yeah.
potentially casting his own Emrakul, if he even has them in his deck. We're unsure.
Looks like he took the
Which
vessel from
could
this.
allow him to take Josh's turn and cast spells and target himself, meaning
Right.
Josh, with his own emblem. He's going to play out a Vessel of Nascency and another Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, buying him a little more wiggle room here with this emblem, but again, just potentially 5+ damage a turn. It's going to be very difficult to get out of range of that. Now,
It could be that Josh has flooded out, but that emblem still looms.
of course,
Playing
and
that
it's,
shambling vent.
Josh didn't have any other plays on his turn, but it's also, from what we saw of his deck, a lot of his spells were removal spells, and a lot of them were instant speed.
Right. Probably going to start the turn cracking this vessel again.
That's what I would expect as well.
Of course, Mike
There he
does have
goes.
6 life sitting on the table, so if he ever does get to that point... we
There is
do
that
see the
Emrakul.
Emrakul, yeah.
Now, I'm not sure how close Mike is to casting that. He is checking now. 4, and is there a 5th type? Yes, 5 card types in his guard, it appears. 6. I lied. meaning Emrakul would cost 7 mana. He is 1 shy on the board, including his tapped lands.
Now, of course, this is an interesting spot, too, because if Josh is just sitting on spells, he could very easily kill his opponent by using Emrakul and taking Josh's turn. Kill him with his own emblem.
That's
Yeah.
what I was alluding to earlier, and that would be an interesting turn of events. Mike playing out another vessel here, and it appears he is sending it back over to Josh. He is. Josh untapping.
Josh is just looking for any kinds of spells here.
It's another one of those games where it seems Josh just hasn't drawn. The spells he has drawn have been very powerful, but
Just flooding. A lot of laughter coming from that side of the room. I think they both realize the absurdity of the land situation. Mike pointing out,
I'm
still an
gonna have
emblem.
I may have to go look at that token. I believe they were mentioning something about the text on that particular emblem, as I air quote for the viewers who can't see us. And Josh has something coming down now, and that's going to be another Chandra.
5U, he says. Chandra 5U.
Very powerful play. He's going to tick up, which should immediately do another 2 damage. Unless there could be another spell he would rather cast.
That looks like a Radiant Flame, so
Not what he's looking to cast here.
he might cast it.
Just to deal the 5 damage. You're absolutely right.
Doesn't cast it. Decides to take the 2 instead of the 5. That's interesting. I'm not sure I agree with that.
It's possible. Well, we were wondering if Mike had any top end in his deck, and I think we just saw there
all
most
on the table.
certainly is.
Yep. I have to imagine if I'm Mike, I'm probably just taking the Virtuoso. He was really hoping to hit a land off of this vessel, I'm pretty sure.
The other thing he might be thinking here is with Emrakul, chaining them one after another to get Josh's turns twice in a row might give him enough room to just kill Josh with his own Chandra emblem.
This is true, but it really needs to hit that land right off the top right
Absolutely.
now.
Absolutely.
If he takes the Virtuoso, he can make 4 tokens down the road, and hopefully he can
Control the
try to
second
raise. Yeah. Looks like he is taking that Emrakul.
I gotta say, I think your line may have been more accurate here. I think it may have been better to take the Whirler Virtuoso and be guaranteed to have action, unless he has a land in his hand that we were unaware of. But
I don't believe we have. We should know the contents of his hand.
I believe he's
Hits the land off the top. There's the Emrakul taking
the
control of the
Emrakul.
turn.
Josh seems he's going to have responses of some sort, at least on the end step here.
Turning on the Shambling
Animated
Vent.
his Shambling Vent and is going to cast the Galvanic to deal 5 on his own Shambling Vent to deal 5 to Mike, putting Mike down to 8.
Kills his Shambling Vent as well. Now, one of the interesting things, I did have an opponent take control of my turn once with a Chandra emblem open. They attempted to cast a spell, or they attempted to plus Chandra hitting me, and they can't do that. Chandra only does hit the opponents.
The emblem, however, is target player, meaning you could target yourself, correct?
The emblem is target player, yep. So you could target yourself. Of course, the hand that he's got, Harness Lightning, cannot hit that Emrakul, and the Shambling Vent is gone, so he can't do anything with Josh's hand. He could plus it, and if he hits a spell, hit Josh in the face for 5, which, coincidentally, Josh is at 18, so doing 5 to his face and swinging with Emrakul would be lethal.
Yes, it would. Now, why could the Harness Lightning not hit Emrakul?
Emrakul does have protection from instants.
Oh,
Because,
correct.
having Flying and Trample and a Mindslaver is not enough. We had to add another line of text.
They certainly pushed Emrakul, while still making it very unique from its big sister, shall we say, in Emrakul the Eon's Torn.
Right.
I
Does-
certainly heard
It looks like we found a spell on the top with Chandra that we're about to cast, burning some energy up.
we cannot see what that card is at the moment.
4 mana.
And that is a
Dark
Goblin
Dwellers.
Dark Dweller,
Ooh. So this
which
is
will be doing 5.
doing 5 to Josh for casting the Dark Dweller.
13.
We're going to look at Dark Dweller.
Gets to cast an instant spell from the graveyard.
Now, personally, I would pick Live Fast because, gives you a little bit more fuel. You're going to cast the
Absolutely.
Live Fast, 5 him, take the 2 from the Live Fast, and then maybe you'll draw another spell. That would put Josh at 1. That's not a great spot for Josh to be in.
Yeah, this is looking like we're seeing the power of Emrakul close this game out fairly quickly here.
Looks like he's casting Galvanic Bombardment against the Dark Dweller. Josh takes another 5, puts him to 8.
Well, he can recast this, not recast, I'm sorry. He can cast the Harness Lightning as hand targeting the
Yep.
Dark Dweller.
Yep, he can cast the
Which
Harness
seems to be
Lightning.
exactly what is happening here, which should put Josh to 3.
Puts Josh to 3, and it should kill that Goblin Dark Dweller as well. So Josh is going to get 1 turn to try to clean this board up before he dies.
I don't know what he would have in his deck. I'm sure he had something here that can deal with Emrakul, but it's a matter of if he finds it.
He might also have his own Emrakuls. We have seen them in Game 1. He's going to flip a card up. If it's a spell and Josh drew a spell this turn, the game could be over.
He's tapping
8
out.
mana.
Is that going to be an Emrakul? It was a
Ruinous
ruinous path on top.
One of the few cards that actually can answer Emrakul.
He's
Ruinous
going to
Path.
awaken one of his lands with it.
5 you awaken the land. I believe,
And I believe
that's
he just
actually
attacks
lethal.
here for lethal. Which is interesting, given we have approximately 4 minutes left in the round. They're going to have to play a very quick Game 3 here. Yeah, they're scooping him up. Josh takes the second game, surviving a brutal turn, being Mindslavered into the Emrakul. And
Josh does take game 2.
Minutes. These players are going to have to shuffle up very quick and get ready to go.
Very quick. I definitely did not expect the game to just end that way, but, who knows when you got a Chandra emblem in play.
Absolutely. That was a very back and forth game. I wasn't sure how to feel regarding who would come out on top there for most of it. I thought that Emrakul might just end it, or at least be too much for Josh to come back from.
Right.
And then one card just makes it explosive.
Well, and especially knowing there's another Emrakul sitting in Mike's hand.
Oh, yeah.
There were very few answers Josh could have drawn in that situation. Fortunately, the Ruinous Path right off the top. The most important.
In reality, he simply needed to draw a spell he could cast, as well as reveal a spell he could cast with Chandra. But he didn't even need the card he drew for a turn. He was able to just use that Ruinous Path to close things out. Going into Game 3 here, I mean, so far we've seen 2 very close games of decks just trying to go bigger than the other, trying to generate more value.
Absolutely.
I don't believe there's really a decided favorite for this match.
Definitely not, and now they're going to be playing Speed Magic.
Absolutely.
I have been told that there's 3:30 left on the clock, so we have an extra minute and a half above what our timer's got.
Okay. We'll see if we can get that technical issue fixed. Regardless, for these 2 decks that are certainly going to take a long time to play most of their games, this will be fast Magic. We'll try to keep a follow of it as best we can here.
Yeah, I'm not sure either of them really has the potential to win. I think Mike would have probably the best chance with some kind of Servant into Virtuoso draw, but it looks like his turn 2 was an Evolving Wild.
Yes, that appears to be the case. Josh having a Mountain as his second land. Mike's turn 3 here. As a Servant with the Conduit come down, as well as an Attune with the Ether, boosting his energy even higher.
Kills the
That
Servant
is
immediately.
killed
Yep.
immediately. As I've said earlier, and we'll say again, bolt the bird every time.
Always bolt the bird, yep. Tapped Shambling Vent for Josh's 3rd turn.
Only way they come.
Yeah, Mike's running this as fast as he can, and I don't think he's going to be able to win it in 2 minutes. He's going to really have to have an explosive draw here.
The tracker.
Tracker's the
into
kind of game
blue.
or the card you want for a long game, but these quick games just dies instantly.
Josh killing it off. Seeing the efficiency of his removal here. And I don't know if Josh has anything way to end the games particularly fast, but getting a Planeswalker on the board certainly is a way to help stabilize.
Chandra take up to 5 to you. definitely a good way to go. We might have enough turns for that Chandra ultimate to go up.
Absolutely. I'd imagine Mike is going to try to... Well, Mike faces a question here of whether or not he wants to try to go for that Chandra, get off the table, which is definitely the play for the long game, or just get threats down and attack Josh's face and try to just ignore the Chandra and race it due to the fact that they're so close to going to turns.
Looks like he's going to tap land for another Attune and use that land to play Marvel. So it should end up with him at 6 energy is my thought. Yep.
And the Marvel takes 7 to activate.
No, it takes 6. So
It takes
he
6.
could actually just go for it right now. My guess is that he'll probably... Yep, there he goes, right there. So really, he's just hoping to Emrakul right now, I would think. Or Ulamog. Ulamog might shut the door very fast.
And there's an Emrakul.
There's an Emrakul. All right, so we've
There's
got
a-
Josh's turn 5 here.
If there's any way either of these players can win, I'd imagine it involves an Emrakul or an Ulamog, some number of Eldrazi.
Looks like a Radiant Flames and Ob Nixilis.
And a Goblin Dark Dweller. We can actually hear Mike. He's notorious around this shop for being having a voice that carries, we'll say. And he was exclaiming, "Why?" And I believe I just heard the timer for them to be going into turns now. So Josh's Mindslaver turn will be turn 1, and then he will have turn 2.
He'll be turn 0. This is actually turn
This
0.
is turn
here.
0,
Yep.
yes.
So it doesn't look like there's a whole lot Mike can do here. I think his best course is to play the Ether Hub, use the energy and play the Dark Dwellers, and cast the Harness Lightning on the Dark Dwellers to get rid of Josh's energy. He won't be able to cast the Ob Nixilis next turn if he does that, which means Emrakul will get to stick around. That's a pretty huge play.
Absolutely.
Looks like Chandra minus to do 4 inconsequential damage to her Tentacle Holiness. I got a little bit of a laugh out of you there.
You certainly did. I attempt to pride myself on my professionalism, but occasionally the humor overwhelms me.
Now we'll see if Mike finds that line. I think the key here is going to be draining the energy out of Josh's energy
Absolutely.
pool. Because if he can get that Ob Nixilis online, Emrakul does nothing.
Absolutely. Now, and as we said, Mike, good player in his own right, but sometimes when you're in the middle of a match, and you're thinking about a million things that perhaps the commentators, such as ourselves, are not, it's more difficult to see the line that can actually get you the win.
Right.
It's often what separates the great players from simply the good players. And Mike absolutely taking his time here. As they are in turns, they're not under the clock racing anymore. We'll see this game slow down.
Right, this is turn 0 like we mentioned. So we're going to play the Ether Hub and go up in energy. Looks like Mike might have actually seen the line. He used the energy off of the Ether Hub, cast the Harness Lightning on the Dark Dweller.
Yeah, I saw the
And
exact line you were describing.
does drain the energy. That's important. That's definitely the most important here. All right, moving into turn 1.
There's a Shambling Vents in Josh's hand here, so he could potentially cast that Emrakul on what would be turn 3.
Right, but that just might be too slow. We're going to plus Chandra here, and we see a Radiant Flames is my guess. Only seeing the top corner of that. Not going to bother casting that. Harness Lightning. Excuse me, Harness Lightning. So Mike's going to take 2 off of the Chandra there.
Paying 4 mana for a
Oh,
Nahiri the
Nahiri.
Harbinger.
Looks like he's going to exile that Marvel. That's a big deal. If Mike doesn't kill the Nahiri, Emrakul's gone. Mike has no more win condition. But if he attacks the Nahiri, he only gets 1 more turn to do lethal.
Yes, Josh is not going to go down easy here.
Moving into turn 2.
This is tense.
I'm not seeing a way where either player can get a win. I'm pretty sure this is going to end up being a draw here. Because next turn, even if he does kill Nahiri, Josh can untap and cast Ob Nixilis, get rid of Emrakul. The opposing Chandra.
I'm just not sure it's going to be good enough here. Josh still sitting at 20 life right now.
Well, even if he pluses it, gets rid of Nahiri. Looks like he plussed it to make mana? Oh no, he did plus it to kill the Nahiri. Okay. And Emrakul to Josh's face gives him down to 7.
Nixus comes down and gets rid of that Emrakul very quickly. But as you said, I don't think there's a line where either player can pull a win out here.
Yeah, there's just really not enough damage in either of these decks to be able to do it.
And that is the one downside of playing these decks that go for the long game and try to generate a lot of value. Occasionally you'll run into a mirror, and if both decks are doing their thing, it can grind out and go to turns.
Looks like Mike takes 2 off of a Chandra activation. It's just really not going to do anything. Mike's going to get turn 4 on the untap here. And there's nothing in his deck that can really do 7 damage at this point.
Not with haste.
He can do 2 with a Chandra, but that other 5 is just not going anywhere.
Unless he could... I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
And on the same token, when we go back to Josh,
Yeah, there's...
unless he would draw a second Nahiri and be able to go find Emrakul.
Well, that won't do anything, though. Josh is turn 5, so he's not even going to be able to attack with it.
Well, wouldn't the Emrakul would be put into play and gain haste off of Nahiri's ability, would she not?
Yeah, but Nahiri is a double plus to activate. She has 8 for her ultimate. She starts with 4. So she actually has to plus twice. And might gain some more life. So even there, now he's going up to 17. He's going to plus Chandra, kill Ob Nixilis. But I think at this point the damage is done. There's just no way for either player to win this game.
Yeah, we'll certainly watch it to its natural conclusion as best we can here.
Very unfortunate. These two were really fun decks to watch.
Oh, absolutely. And
I wonder if those Radiant Flames are
Josh
main
is
deck.
looking at what he's drawn here, he's thinking as though he might have some sort of answer. Mike playing with his contents of the hand revealed for us. We can see there is a Aetherworks Marvel in hand.
Radiant Flames for 3. Because he can. And we're going to crack that Woodweaver's puzzle knot.
Because he can.
Because he can. Look at this. Still had all these marvels in hand. Just nothing to do. All right. Looks like a draw.
Hands.
Yep.
Here's the did end in a draw.
Well, that is just unfortunate. I really...
Absolutely. You could not see that on the camera. Mike held up that note earlier that said he's good, complimenting Josh, and then he crossed out good, held up the same note and said he's meh.
Meh. Yeah, you know.
Which is unfortunately how the conclusion of that game felt. It was kind of
Very
anticlimactic.
Much. Very much. Not a good release of the energy there. But, you know, that's going to happen. You pit up 2 mid-range slower decks. It's going to be really hard for him to close the game in a tight situation like that.
And again, it's a shame. Both players played very well. We saw all 3 of those games come very close.
Definitely.
A lot of value, a lot of very interesting interactions from 2 very good players.
Definitely.
Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Absolutely.
Definitely the kind of Magic we like to see.
Absolutely.
And that's that.
Well, I think we're going to take a quick break before the next round. They were probably the last game in the round. Just looking, I don't see anybody playing.
Yeah, so we'll take a short break, and we'll be back with you shortly to see what should be the only undefeated match, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, we'll be right back. Whoa, no. Go off.
All right, and we're back.
All right, welcome to the fourth round of Friday Night Magic here at Owl Central Games. Pairings will be going up momentarily, and we have for our future match the only two undefeated players left. Mm-hmm. And they are...
We've got Mark Fleischhood. I'm not sure what he's playing. He's been playing Blue White Flash for quite a while.
I think
I'm not
he
sure if
mixes
he
it up
switched.
every now and then.
Yeah, and we have Derek Ramsey. I did catch Derek a little bit earlier when we roamed around. Looks like he's playing an Esper Blue White Flash style deck. I saw
I believe,
Kalida's. I saw some Ruinous Path.
Yeah,
So
that looks sweet. I
Yeah.
believe, as you commented, it's great. It's Blue-White Flash, but there's a Kalidas on the board.
right.
Gotta love it. And, like I said, this is our last round of Friday Night Magic here for Standard. Next opportunity to play Standard here will be Friday Night Magic next week.
Mm-hmm.
And then next Saturday, there's going to be a Grand Prix trial for GP Pittsburgh.
Yep.
That will be Standard, of course. $25 entry fee. Starts at noon. Shop will open up at 11. And if you can go undefeated in that, win out the top 8, then you can get 2 buys for GP Pittsburgh that's coming up
Yep.
this spring.
Yep.
A bunch of East Coast GPs coming up, bunch of big events. We've got a few other GPs coming up. We've got one for GP New Jersey coming up in February, in addition to the preliminary Pro Tour qualifier for Pro Tour Kyoto.
Right.
That is going to be on Saturday, January 21st here, also at noon. But right now, we're just focused here on Friday Night Magic, having a good time. These players playing their last round. And, should be a fun game.
Yeah, definitely. We had 22 players here today, which a little bit lower than the normal turnout. Usually we hover around 30. Probably people getting a little bit bored of the format on top of the holiday part.
Absolutely.
You know.
I know there was probably some confusion about us being open this evening.
Yeah.
Last week we were closed for the holiday. But open this week, Friday Night Magic going. And I said last round, Josh Schaefer was probably one of the top 2 players. I would easily classify Mark Fleischhood, who you're about to see play, as, again, one of the top 2, if not the best.
Yep.
He's an employee here along with myself, so I know him quite well. I also like to call him a friend, and he is a phenomenal Magic player. He's beaten me in the final round of Friday Night Magic more times than I'd care to admit.
Definitely.
But should be interesting. Players seem to be drawing their hands, so let's take it over to the feature match.
All right.
Mark on the right. See his hand there appears. We were correct. He's still on Blue-White Flash. And, Derek Ramsey is on that Esper control list we saw earlier. And these are both decks that are near and dear to my heart, and I would love to see.
All right. It looks like the timer just started.
Derek opening up with a Choke Estuary, revealing a Swamp and not having a play on it. Mark follows up with that Plains and the Thraben Inspector. Popular turn 1 play we've seen this evening.
Oh, absolutely. Making those clues your favorite.
Derek follows up with a second Choke Estuary, revealing a Swamp again, and still no plays on it. Sending it back over to Mark.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what else Derek's deck does. Like I said, it seemed like an Esper version of Blue-White Flash. I definitely saw the Kalidas and Ruinous Path, but, when people decide to do a little bit of splashing, who knows what they're going to come up with, right?
Absolutely. And the amount of cards that could open up with 3 color combinations as opposed to just 2.
Looks like an end-step Anticipate for Derek, setting up the hand.
Absolutely. This is the style of Magic I love to play. Draw the perfect cards within the deck, control it, have answers as you need them, and we'll see if Derek can draw the right answers to this Blue-White Flash deck. A very resilient deck with Selfless Spirit, Spell Quellers, really letting them dictate the pace of the game.
Sure.
And limit the plays that you can really make effectively against them.
Damn. Looks like an interesting no white source yet for Derek. So I'm wondering if he has one hidden in hand and just can't play it yet, or if he's missing it.
It's certainly not impossible that he had this Anticipate in hand with a number of black lands without a white source and thought, well, I've got draw slips in the Anticipate, and I can find
Right.
the white source I need. But as we know, Magic is a game of variance, and it doesn't always work out.
Going straight to the attack step. Turn sideways.
As Blue-white flash deck certainly getting a presence on the board early. And a murder coming down at the Selfless Spirit.
Murder. Derek going to take another ding from the inspector, go down to 18.
Mark cracking the clue here before a land drop, so may or may not be digging for a land. It appears he missed his land drop.
Missed the land drop, yeah. That's a big blow for the blue-white flash decks. They really want to hit all of their lands up to turn 5 and then just stop. They don't want to play any more lands.
Absolutely right. At the very least to 3, where you can start playing those Spell Quellers and the Reflector Mages. Some of the best plays that deck has.
Of course, Derek doing nothing on his turn, playing Island, saying go. And another Selfless Spirit coming down.
Priest resolves and end step Grasp of Darkness to clean it up.
Yep.
Some solid draw-go magic coming from Derek's side of the play. This is the spot where Mark really wants to be doing 2 things a turn, but being stuck on 2 lands makes that very difficult.
There's that white source opening the door for Derek to play things like Spell Queller. Curious to see what direction we go here. Another Inspector for Mark.
Or another attempted Inspector. Derek is going to Spell Queller that, which just an incredibly powerful tempo play, Spell Queller.
Absolutely. Well, on top of it now, Mark has less chances to get those lands that he desperately needs.
Absolutely.
Derek could potentially be up to 6 lands this turn. Yep, there's that 6th land.
There's still only 1 white source, however, which is going to make a limited amount of the white spells. I'm sure his deck is playing Avacyn in there at some point, which...
Of course, Kalidas hits the board now. Mark finally finds his 3rd land.
Might
I'm
just
pretty
be
sure
too
there's
late,
going to be a
though.
Reflector Mage coming momentarily.
would expect that would be the case. And, his best bet there is probably just to hope that whatever he bounces, he can Spell Queller the following turn, getting rid of the Spell Queller that Derek had, so he gets that Thraben Inspector, gets the clue token with that Enter the Battlefield trigger, and if Mark can recoup on these land drops, he's certainly still got a fighting chance.
Absolutely. Kalidas does threaten to take over a board, gaining 3 life, plowing through those creatures. Now, Mark, you know, if he did swing with Kalidas, he could block with everybody, get rid of it. But I'm pretty sure Derek's not going to allow that.
I would certainly expect it. It appears Derek just drew a card and passed the turn back.
Yep.
Mark taking a look at his hand here. A 4th land drop. He's got to be relieved to see that.
Looking intently at the hand, looking for what to do here. He just feels so behind. Gonna
2
break
mana
that
to
clue.
crack that clue here. I think that was actually on Ramsey's end step. I believe he missed a pass
Yeah.
at the turn in there. They said draw go magic occasionally. A little hard to follow with not a lot of action happening.
Looks like Mark is at 8 cards in hand, and I don't see another land in there.
No.
I definitely see some 5 drops.
And Selfless Spirit is the play for the turn.
Spirit number 3.
If that is allowed to resolve, which it is not, Mark knew about that Spell Queller, so knowing Mark, I would assume that was effectively bait for the Spell Queller.
Probably pretty planned, yep.
Back to Ramsey, Spell Queller seems to be getting in for some damage.
Still doesn't look like a 5th land. Stasis Snare coming down. And quelled immediately. So Derek definitely has a commanding board at the moment.
Absolutely, with a distinct lead in man advantage. He might not technically have an advantage in cards, but I believe that is by design. I believe he's got exactly what he wants in hand here, and it's going to be very difficult for Mark to come back.
Absolutely. Looks like Mark is at 14, Derek at 16. Queller is threatening the world unsupervised. And yet another Thraben Inspector. Of course, it looks like Mark has finally hit his 5th land. So maybe he can start climbing back into this game slowly.
Absolutely. I'm sure his deck, with his blue-white flash style, has cards such as Avacyn in it, and some big threats that could potentially threaten that Kalitas. Again, threats with flying that can threaten those spell Quellers. And,
There is definitely an Avacyn in Mark's hand right now. Looks like he's going to upkeep Stasis Snare. Maybe trying to bait out another potential Queller.
which I could see.
Summary Dismissal is the answer, it looks like.
Another efficient counterspell. It's, Mark reminding Derek he does have to pay for that summary dismissal after the untap step, of course. This is why you do it on the upkeep, eat some of the mana.
So off camera is actually a swamp of Derek. So he's got 4 lands untapped currently.
Now, what I think Mark might have been hoping for there with that Stasis Snare was either, one, that it just resolves, obviously, or 2, if Derek does have that 3rd Spell Queller, it's possible Mark has a Declaration in Stone in hand.
Correct. Which would be
Which,
quite a good blow as long as you can get through uncountered.
And even if it only hits those 2, that would then allow him to get back that Stasis Snare, as well as a Selfless Spirit, I believe, is under the other one. Which would really swing this board around very quickly. Another Stasis Snare coming down. That's the 3rd one we've seen from Mark. And another Summary Dismissal from Derek. And a Revolutionary Rebuff coming
Rebuff
down.
to counter. Now he might be able to chain all of these Stasis Snares together, get rid of all of these Quellers, and get his Selfless Spirit back.
I believe the question is, does that second Stasis Snare go after the Spell Queller, or does he go for the Kalitas? He goes for the Spell Queller. Now he can simply just line up blocks against that Kalitas if necessary and sacrifice the Spell Queller to prevent any zombies from being acquired.
Of course, if he does sacrifice the Queller or the Selfless Spirit, he does give Kalitas a zombie. So there is that.
I would take a 2/2 zombie over a Kalitas Trader of Get any day.
Absolutely.
Derek has drawn his card for the turn, and take a moment to think about what his play will be. That last turn for Mark was extremely powerful.
You know, as good as that turn was, I don't think he's anywhere near ahead. I think he's just barely pulled even. He can't attack into that Kalitas, although that Kalitas can't attack either.
Well, he does have that Selfless Spirit, which does have flying.
True.
So he can get over there and start chipping in damage. Derek no longer has the board locked down, although he's still certainly not behind. I would say he's probably still in control here, but Mark is going to go ahead and attack in for 2. Uncontested damage. No follow-up play, so we are back on Derek's turn. Then, Mark is going to attempt to flash in an Avacyn on the end step. See if Derek has a counter spell or perhaps even a removal spell to try to deal with it. He is going to Grasp of Darkness Avacyn.
Now, he didn't actually make a zombie token from that Avacyn. It went to the graveyard.
I believe that was just a miss on their part. Whether that is rectified or not by any of our staff, we'll see. Friday Night Magic, RAL, shouldn't be any harsh penalties for anything. But if we can rectify the board state, we certainly will. Yep, it appears they did catch that in retrospect.
And it looks like Mark is going to quell a Glimmer of Genius that was cast.
That does appear to be what happens here. It's another flying threat for Mark. With that Selfless Spirit there, they threaten to close that game out very fast. A Westvale Abbey on the board now for Mark. I don't think that's something he really wants to consider activating at this point, but it is a reasonable backup plan should Derek claw his way back into this one. On the board, at least.
Looks like Selfless Spirit got in there for 2. This matchup is very interesting. It's very slow and controlling.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that there are a ton of creatures on the board, just nothing's really happening. It's all going at
Kalidas
a fairly even pace.
absolutely. I would attribute a lot of that to Kalidas. He really has the power to just shut most board states down and make it very difficult for your opponent to have profitable attacks here.
He is definitely the brick wall of Get.
Absolutely.
Looks like we're in Derek's turn right now.
Sending it back to Mark.
Yep.
A lot of Drago magic going on here, and well, I think that is what Derek's deck is designed to do. I'm not sure it's what he wants to be doing in this position. Worth noting, he does seem to only have that one Plains yet as his only white source.
Mm-hmm.
So he may have spells in his hand such as Stasis Snare or Avacyn that cost double white, and that may be restricting his lines of play.
Indeed. Looks like he's getting in there with the flyers. Of course, one of the downsides of that Westvale Abbey is going to be if he does actually flip it, he's going to make 5 zombies for Kalidas. That could be a big deal.
Given the current state, I don't believe that Westvale Abbey is anywhere near Mark's primary game plan.
Absolutely not.
I would assume that's a backup plan in the event of something like a Wrath from the side of Derek. If you would cast something like a planar outburst.
Looks like a Port Town revealing a Prairie Stream was Mark's only play on that turn. And Mark
Derek
is sitting on
going
a grip full of cards.
Derek casting this Glimmer of Genius. It appears to be main phase, which is surprising. He may just recognize he's behind here and is desperately trying to find an answer as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm. Looks like he puts both of them on the bottom. Neither one suitable for what he's looking for. I'm not sure what it is he needs at this point. Any kind of board wipe is just going to earn a Selfless Spirit activation.
Like I said, it's also possible with the amount of mana he has here, he could easily cast a board wipe as well as a... well, I was going to say a Summary Dismissal, but that would exile his board wipe as well.
Still on that one white source, playing a Choked Estuary for the turn.
I have to imagine that's part of what's restricting Derek's plays here. He hasn't really made any significant impact to the board.
Looks like Mark's going to make a human off of Westvale Abbey.
That is surprising. That is he has a fairly commanding board state already, and that is going to do a damage to him. Although it's possible once he gets... I believe he's looking at sacrificing his non-flyers. Derek Ramsey flashing a negate there, and I'm not sure why.
He might have thought he was casting a spell, but he was actually just activating the ability of Abby.
Okay, I believe that's what happened there.
Derek is a relatively new player. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Here in the store. He's been playing Magic for a couple months now.
Yeah, we've had quite a few players pick up the cross thread of the games here, jumping from Yu-Gi-Oh! To Magic primarily, a little bit going back the other way as well. Welcome all sorts of card games here at Owl Central. We have tournaments for Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh!, but Thursday nights are a big open game night here for us, so people come and play all sorts of things, different card games. There's some Pokemon that goes on, people playing board games.
Looks like he is going for that Westvale Abbey play. Sacks the human and 4 creatures, the 3 Thraben Inspectors and the Reflector Mage.
He may just be saying, I can close this game out right now. Let's not give Derek any more draws with trying to get that board wipe or something that can deal with my board presence.
Kalidas didn't make the zombies, but I'm not sure it's relevant yet, so...
If Ramsey is at 8 life as we have here, the Ormond all by himself is enough to hit. And, Ramsey seems to be analyzing the situation, and that's going to do it.
Yep, looks like that's the end of the
activation
game.
closes the game out just a turn or two early, but I don't believe Mark wanted Derek to have the opportunity to find an answer.
Definitely.
Now,
2 slower controlling decks definitely taking their time. And funny enough, when I first started Magic a long time ago, we always said that Screw tends to beat Flood a lot of the time. Because you're mana screwed, you tend to have a lot of gas in your hands. So once you do find those lands, you could just start coming out of the gates really well.
And that's definitely what we saw here with Mark. He was able to not only start having more spells than Derek, but played them more efficiently. We saw him very carefully maneuver around the spell queller he knew about,
Right.
and chain that back into some removal spells that very efficiently dealt with those spell quellers. And just some very fine magic played very well on the part of Mark Fleischert here.
So one of the interesting dynamics of this matchup is going to be, I'm pretty sure Mark has to take the aggro role in this matchup. Derek's deck looks like it's more suited to being the control deck, so it might be that Mark brings in some of the cheap counter spells and gets rid of some of those big drops and just
Absolutely.
turns things sideways.
Absolutely. I believe that's definitely what he'll want to do here, is be more aggressive. End the game before Derek has too many of his big threats, such as Kalidas or some other ones we probably didn't see. I'm sure that's not the only threat in his deck. Where we are long past the days where you can play all removal and counter spells and one threat and expect that to be enough to win a game.
Right. There certainly isn't a Morphling or Aetherling in this format to be able to just purely control them.
Absolutely not. But the control decks are still viable. They're never going to be quite as successful as some of the mid-range decks we've seen. Things like the Marvel decks, which are more combo, essentially, or the Delirium decks, but they are definitely still viable, particularly at your local level, which is where a lot of Magic is played these days.
Definitely. And I think one of the cards coming in Aether Revolt is actually going to help the control decks out pretty much. Currently the only card that can answer any part of Emrakul is Summary Dismissal. And I think the control decks get a big boost out of that new spell. Although I can't remember the name of it. Do you remember the name of it?
No, but I can remember the lovely nickname given to it by my friend Tyler Blessing of Squancel.
Squancel. Okay. Disallow. That's the name of it.
That would be it.
Disallow. Disallow being able to either stifle the Mindslaver trigger or counter the Emrakul. I think that's going to be a pretty big deal for control decks coming
Absolutely.
up. As there's no bigger card than Emrakul right now.
Absolutely. And it can even index more versatility, whether it's where you really want to be placing the Disallow. You can potentially counter the activation of an Aetherworks Marvel if you didn't have it at the time to counter them or had to tap out for a threat.
Right.
And,
Force them to use that 6 energy and then just drain it from them.
Absolutely. And some of these Marvel decks, once they get that Marvel off, that's really the extent of their energy. And you can really just choke them off at that point and drain their resources. All right, our players are presenting and seem to be getting ready to draw their opening hands. And Derek being on the play here should give him the opportunity to set up counter spells or removal spells prior to Mark's threats, which is right where Derek Ramsey wants to be here.
Absolutely. Mark opens a hand. Looks like there's 2 lands in it, potentially.
It's a little hard to tell here.
I do see a Jace and a Smuggler's Copter.
I'm not sure I saw any lands in that hand.
Okay.
So he is sending it back for sure.
Ships it back right away. So it's interesting. It looks like Mark brought in Jaces. I know they're not in his main deck. I'm not sure I agree with that. I would definitely see Mark as going the aggressive route. I don't know how bringing in a Planeswalker helps him accomplish that.
I don't think it does. I think he's going the route of wanting to simply play his tempo game. And I think he brings in the Jace here as having a way to get some more value and really be able to fight the control deck at its own game. Drawing cards, bouncing creatures, and as we discussed earlier when we were looking at Josh's Mardu deck, Planeswalkers effectively let you cast a free spell every turn for each Planeswalker you have. And I think that's probably what he was going for with that Jace.
Could be.
Now let's see if you can get a keepable 6. See at least 1 land in there. Hopefully there's a few more and he can keep. It appears he does, and he keeps... Well, he's looking at that scry right now. I'm not sure if he's keeping it on top or not. Let you know as soon as we do. And that is going to the bottom. And we are underway in Game 2. These players on solid pace, both playing very clear, quick, and efficient Magic.
Choked Estuary into Island Go. Of course, the first couple turns of these decks really shouldn't be doing very much. Oh, Mark rips the plains off the top. I bet he needed that second land. Meanwhile, Derek can't do anything about it. He's just on an Evolving Wilds. Goes and gets that plains immediately. So definitely not going to be any color problems for Derek this game immediately.
And obviously no color problems for Mark either, as he has 2 required basic lands immediately. And, let's see what Derek has for us on this turn 3.
Derek misses his 3rd land drop. That's huge for a control deck right now.
I find it very interesting, and a mistake I've seen players make quite often when they're newer, of keeping these 2 land hands when you're playing a control deck, not realizing how important it is to get that mana so you can hit these land drops and make sure you keep your curve going. Because one of the biggest advantages you get from going first is that you get to be on the play and have that mana advantage.
Right.
And he's now given that up and actually given it to Mark. Even though Mark's only card on the field at the moment is that Thraben Inspector, which is a very slow clock. It is as he has more cards and can start generating advantage with them. We'll see him slowly take over this game.
Looks like he gets a swamp for his 3rd land.
It's off of that Evolving Wilds he sacrificed on Mark's turn. And it's
No 4th
still
land.
no play.
Yeah, still missing land drops.
Mark hitting his and swinging in for 1. It's a very long game he's going for. He's banking on this 17-turn clock this Thraben Inspector is representing, but
Don't knock the Inspector. He draws you cards and
I'm
defeats
not
life.
knocking him. I'm just saying it's slow. And Derek flashing a Spell Queller on end step, simply trying to get a body in here. Let's see if Mark allows that to happen. And no, he puts it under his own Spell Queller.
Quelling the Queller. Very popular play earlier in the standard format.
Play that's really strong, because whenever, should your Spell Queller get removed, them getting that Spell Queller and not being able to control when it happens really is going to be make it it will greatly decrease its value.
Definitely, very big deal.
Mark untaps, gets a Westvale Abbey. Gets to swing in there for 4, if I'm not mistaken, and now threatens
3.
3. Is the Spell Queller a 2/3?
It is a 2/3.
I was thinking it was a
Yep,
3/2. I apologize. And,
Looks like a Spell Queller potentially blocking.
seems to be what he's going for. And we'll see if Mark is thinking another Spell
Quelled.
Queller on the Spell Queller.
Quelled again.
Yeah.
4 Quellers played so far this game.
Another one of the staple cards in this format that I love the design of it. It's very powerful, but very much a tempo card. Right up my alley.
Mark's in an interesting position where at this point he can just freely swing in with Quellers and start making humans and play the longest of games because Ramsey's just missing his land drops.
Absolutely. And missing your land drops in a match like this, where at this point Mark has reached the position well before Ramsey where he can start casting 2 spells a turn. And that is very often in standard formats defined as one of the most important things, is finding where you can hit. And you do multiple things. Ramsey casting another Spell Queller, and Mark is going to Stasis Snare that Spell Queller before blocks. Mini Mark gets in there for 5 damage, putting Ramsey down to 9. Ramsey has a 2-turn clock on him here.
And he's just not drawing lands to be able to do anything.
Already right back to Mark. It feels like Ramsey's probably just resigned to defeat at this point. I mean, it's so hard to come back from
There's a certain
missing
amount of
over-
hopelessness.
missing over 4 land drops.
I'm not sure what Derek can do at this point to draw. Mark showing a Spell Queller. Even if you got an answer, buddy, I got you covered.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything Ramsey can do.
Yeah, it looks like
And
game
there's
over.
the handshake. That was a unfortunate game there. I'm sure Ramsey would have liked to have drawn some more lands there, but I think mulligan decisions are probably one of the most underrated portions of what makes a good Magic player a good Magic player.
Definitely.
Being able
definitely.
to recognize the hands, what your goals need to be for the game, and how well that hand, despite its contents and how great they may actually be, can really contribute to achieving that goal.
I would definitely agree that I think mulligans are probably the biggest key to maintaining the best Magic game you possibly can. Once you learn how to mulligan with your decks, not getting stuck on those 2 and 3 land hands, It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Absolutely, and I feel it's definitely an underrated portion of the game. It's one of those fundamentals that you really need to learn and stick to, and it will win you more games than anyone would care to admit. I often say that more games of Magic are determined not by the decks or by the nuance, but by the fundamentals that people stick to.
Right.
And
So it looks like that was actually the last match. Nobody is still playing. So it looks like our FNM might be over here.
I believe so. A little early tonight, which is a nice change of pace. Usually we go a little later than this, but 10:45, good night, and yeah, had some fun.
Well,
Think,
thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, and be sure to check us out at owlcentralgames.com. You can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/owlcentralgames. Remember, we've got that GPT coming up next weekend, Saturday. If you need any cards for that, feel free to pick them up on our website. We've got plenty of singles, sealed product in the store if you're more of a limited guy. And thanks for watching. I've been Robert Ellis.
I'm Luke Croteau.
Good night and good magic.